the steal. Gillis in the open floor is going to have to regather to Smith. The lob to Edey.
This is 365 Sports, powered by Sikkim365.com.
Approaching 14 minutes to go here at Baylor. About a shot, yeah, on target.
365 Sports is presented by IdealMRI.com. High-quality MRIs for $497 or less. IdealMRI.com. Your health is important, so is your budget.
Harris finds a cutting Grady Dick. Blocked. Wilson is there to clean it up.
365 Sports is also brought to you by Texas Farm Bureau Insurance, protecting Texans since 1952.
5 seconds. Shed driving. Looking up. 1 second to go for the win. He got it. The Cougars win it. Number one remains number one.
Have you subscribed to our YouTube channel? Search 365 Sports on YouTube. Brought to you by TFNB, your bank for life.
Burley tries again.
That's good. And Alabama feeling a lot better about their shooting now than at this point yesterday.
Now here's David Smoak, Paul Catalina, and Craig Smoak.
And today we come to you in a different way for a couple of different reasons. I had earlier today an injection in my lower back for impingement in my lower left side of my vertebrae, and so this is a more comfortable setting, thanks to Paul, Garrett, and Jack for setting me up today with this. But, hey, I'm not alone, because there's Craig and there's Paul on the set as normal, and we've got a lot to get to today. We have a ton of guests today. We have some news out of Arizona with Arizona's AD and also the Arizona State AD making comments about their future with the Pac-12 and also moving forward. And on top of that, there's the Aaron Rodgers news, Ezekiel Elliott being released by the Cowboys, and much more to get to. Chuck Cooperstein, Rob Dowster, both on the college basketball tournament. John Cooper, our lad's guide to the NFL draft. He'll join us about the prospects. We're going to focus a lot on the Big 12 prospects early. Baylor coach Scott Drew joins us live today at about 4:20 from Denver. And then Kevin Flaherty covers basketball for 247. He'll join us at 5, plus John Machota on the Zeke Elliott release in Paul's top 5. So let's start with this. And there are 2 more play-in games tonight, Arizona State and Nevada. And the winner will get, Arizona State and Nevada, the winner will get TCU. Is that correct? And then Texas Southern Fairleigh Dickinson, the winner will get Purdue. Those are play-in games from earlier. Now, the Arizona athletic director, here are John Wilner with the story. There is the story about Robert Robbins from Arizona. Here are some of the quotes from that story, and Paul and Craig interject along the way. Asked about discussions between Arizona and the Big 12, Robbins didn't answer directly, but said he has friends in the conference and was in favor. This is not the current Big 12 stuff. From the remaining Big 12 schools after Texas and Oklahoma announced they were joining the SEC, I personally like the idea of forming the Pac-20 or the Big Pac, whatever you'd want to call it. I thought it would have been really cool, but it got very complicated.
It didn't actually get that complicated. USC and UCLA were leaving and didn't want to commit to that conference.
Because they knew they were leaving even a year before that, right?
Yeah, so even if, I'm sure there's complications past that, Stanford and Cal and their kind of, search for like academic institutions and, politics and blah, 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 and money split and yada, yada, yada. I think ultimately it came down to the fact that USC was probably never going to say, yeah, let's do it, because they had 1 foot out the door. Well, if not almost both feet out the door, and just weren't saying it yet.
All right. I would love to be closer to the Big Ten or SEC, but being closer to the Big 12 is more realistic. Robbins saying the Kliavkoff, the Pac-12 commissioner, has done a great job working on the media deal, and I think he'll bring us something that's good enough. What is good enough? Asked about the speculation over the future of the conference, Robbins went on to say rejected the notion that schools, including Arizona, would bolt for the Big 12 prior to being presented with the media rights proposal, it's heavily dependent on Kliavkoff and his team negotiating a good media deal for us to stay competitive.
Well, I mean, I bet this was a tough quote for some people who are really trying to go a certain way with this, because as soon as you feel like the door's absolutely positively shut on everything and anything, it's like, as long as the media deal's competitive. So, if you want to really dig into these words and read them at face value, then that's one that's not exactly like, oh, yeah, nothing could ever break us apart. We'll never, ever break these bonds of the Pac-12. That's absolutely saying, like, the offer's not great and it's bad enough that it would be worth moving, then, yeah, we would explore that. That's basically what he just said, unless I'm wrong in reading that. Did you guys read that same way?
Put that back one up,
okay.
Garrett.
Yeah.
Put that one up again at the bottom. It's heavily dependent on Commissioner Kliavkoff and his team negotiating a good media deal for us to stay competitive.
So if you'll leave that there, Garrett. So I realize, and again, I'll say this hopefully for what's the final time now. I've been Pac-12 stays together this entire time. The entire time we've been doing this. I've never even crossed the line of feeling like the Big 12 was going to be adding Pac schools, but it's been fun to see all the conversation. Not so fun to see some of the others that have made it just really weird and personal. But I think that's part of their own little PR campaigns. But regardless of where you sit on this, even the pro-Pac folks have to say, like, that's a quote there that kind of like cracks the door just a little bit. Now, you probably feel like it's not going to matter because the deal's going to be competitive. But to say that there's nothing to anything, and there are folks who certainly acknowledge, like, different levels of, like, they have talked, but it's never gotten serious. They've talked and it's gotten serious. There's some that still claim they haven't talked at all, which those folks are obviously not being entirely truthful. And there's some that say that there's no chance to anything could possibly ever happen. That quote flies in the face of that, because that says if the TV deal sucks, then there's a window.
I think you can look at it. It depends on what you want. I think you can look at that quote and say, okay, done. It's over. It's just a matter of them announcing the new media deal and then moving on, and then they decide whatever they want to do with the Pac-12. Or you can look at that as if there is a little bit of a light in that door, as you mentioned, Greg, is cracked.
I think the light in the door is not for now. I think the light in the door is to see what happens over the next 5 years in college football overall, but with the Pac-12, because one of the terms he used in the previous quote was good enough. Good enough is, that's a loaded term. Like, good enough can mean, like, okay, it's good enough, we're fine now, or it's good enough for now. I mean, like, there's a lot of ways that can be. That's what ground the Pac-12 has to tread on right now, is good enough. If you asked, obviously the Big Ten and the SEC, if you asked what kind of ground they're on, they're like, it's great. Everything's wonderful here. Look at the soil. It's wonderful.
Beautiful. It's beautiful.
Everything's great. And the Big 12 would say, we're pretty good. We like where we are. The ACC is like, well, we don't really know, but we're going to live here for another decade. And then the Pac-12's like, well, I guess it's good enough.
Yeah. I mean, I just think that's a super obvious quote. They didn't even, like, it says there was no chance of bolting prior to a proposal being put out there. Well, duh. Like, I mean, I know that they had to include that for reasons, but yeah, I don't think anybody, no matter what you predicted that the Pac-12 would see a school leave before even seeing the offer.
If a school left before the offer was placed on the table,
makes no sense. Yeah.
The guy, whoever makes that decision, would be
fired. Yeah, that's bad business. So, like, that's what he's saying is, like, yeah, nobody's going to leave before an offer was proposed. So, yeah, I don't think anybody expected anybody would leave prior to knowing what the money situation would be. That's how I read that. But also very much, and again, I think one of the more grounded ones, and I think y'all are as well. We haven't really got caught up in, like, this is really going to happen, but it's certainly been interesting.
We've covered it.
Yeah, we talked about it, and we covered the what ifs, ands, buts, all that kind of stuff, but we've never been like, this is happening. And so I think that, again, there's a lot of different ways you can read that, but I read that as, we weren't going to, like, explore something without seeing a TV deal first, but he also didn't say that, like, oh, no, there's absolutely no chance that would happen regardless. So, again, that's one that leaves it open to interpretation.
A couple of more, and, again, we're also going to have a quote or two from the president, the Arizona State president. This is from Robbins. He painted a nuanced picture for Arizona, citing the school's proximity to the Big 12 footprint and that the league's powerhouse basketball brand as the basis for some affinities. Of course, if you look at the Big 12 with what they have, especially with the tradition of Kansas and Baylor winning the last 2 national titles, Arizona's history, hell, one of those 3 might win it again this year. Probably, if you put it in order, it might be like Arizona, Kansas, Baylor, and Baylor would be on the outside looking in as far as the odds. And then who knows what else, with Texas being as red hot as they are, but some affinities.
Yeah, affinities for sure.
So is that still looks pretty good to me, and I may want to date it?
I think that's probably also the fan base, though,
Sure.
too. That's like, when you have people like Jason Shear talking, I mean, he hears from the fan base more than most, right? Because he works for a site that is populated by Arizona fans. That's who goes to it for the most part. Some other people might randomly, but he's writing and covering and talking to Arizona fans. So when you hear what Arizona fans want, I think there's a large majority of them that just want the dance to end. And that means, moving to another league that would be more permanent because, good enough for, whatever ground they're on. So that's where it's going. Now, there's one, I think it was in the tweet, Garrett, that Robin said as well, and we haven't gotten to this, but on the Pac-12 media rights and Big 12 rumors, why would you move for a couple $1 million a year more? He also asked that. Okay, let's dial that back. There were a lot of people convinced that the Pac-12 was going to get more for sure.
Well, the commissioner said they would.
Well, if he's saying, why would you move for a couple $1 million more, then
is that insinuating they know it may be $28 million or $29 million rather than 31 with the football?
Exactly. So he's kind of insinuating that maybe the Pac-12 deal will be less. So another thing
but
that just
not enough to where you would have movement.
Yeah.
Like if we really quoted people directly on this, there's a lot of people you see talking out of every side of their mouth with this, because the same person who said they'll never move, there's been no discussions, is, well, of course there's been discussions. I didn't, and then it turns into that, and then the Pac-12 is going to get a higher number is now turned into, no, I just said it was going to be a closer, I think I've seen a lot of that going on
or
today.
for a couple of $1 million less.
Yeah, or I've seen quite a bit of that actually. But I think that it kind of depends on who you look at, because a lot of people have said a lot of different things. And there are some people who said it's not going to be more, it's going to be close. And there are some who said it's going to be more. And there are some who said it's going to be way less. And so whoever said it's going to be less but not enough to make them move, that looks, if you base it off of his quote alone, that looks like what it's going to be. And I think that was probably the most logical expectation through all of this, because we talked about the Pac. How could you have a much higher deal? Because there were even some that thought that they'd comfortably surpass. There was a quote just like a week ago of we'll comfortably be past.
It's a layup.
Yeah, it's the layup quote. It's a layup that will have a better deal in the Big 12 or whatever the exact quote was. It was something in that regard, but yeah.
Here's one of the mistakes that led to months of this back and forth when Kleofkoff on record basically said, I think we'll be near $50 million. Isn't that Paul and Craig when he came out, because and again, they were being at least basically, depending on who you ask, there were vultures, right? I mean, that's kind of the term, or just the fact that the Big 12 got theirs done, where the Big 12 may have given up money for exposure, the Pac-12 could get less money, and they're not going to get better
less exposure.
Yeah. So,
the only $50 million,
less, again, is debatable.
The only $50 million I know is from the Pac-12 Network, a little scandal that we touched on briefly, where
I thought there was a quote from Kleofkoff at some point, Craig and Paul, that he said that he felt like they could reach almost the $50 million range. And that may have created some of the speculation, and oh my God, there's no way they're going to get to that number.
The Big 12, expected to see 50. See, this article's not quite.
Okay, well, that's fine.
Yeah.
There's another quote we got to get to as well.
Yeah, it's...
Robbins from Arizona framed the future of the Pac-12 as a business decision with the onus on the commissioner to craft a competitive media rights deal.
Well, yeah. I mean, that's what it has to be. And so if they, it's how it's been the whole time. It's nice to hear. I mean, it is good to hear from these university presidents who have been fairly mum on the subject overall. And I get you're in negotiations, but to hear from them and say, no, we don't want to leave. No one wants to leave. Now, granted, that could change, in a heartbeat if they come back and the deal's not what they think. But, I don't expect that to happen in this go around, but yeah.
I just received it. Go ahead, Craig. I just received the text, and I'm waiting. Let me wait to see who this is about media rights and all that. I'm going to quote the text because a lot of people are contacting us, of course, who have been a part of these things before.
Yeah, so, I mean, they've apparently got a deal, but they're still working on the deal. Is that how I'm reading this? We're waiting on the final analysis and the final numbers, I suppose, because it's talking as though it's done, but then not quite done, but competitive enough that they know enough to know that it's not going to cause the conference to fall apart, which is kind of what a lot of people expected. Was you may not have as much money as the Big 12, but again, it's not going to be far enough off to make enough of a difference to cause schools to leave. And that seems to be where we are. So, I do think that the final numbers should be awfully close. I don't know, if there's going to be a victory lap for whoever has, a dollar more than the other when all is said and done. It sounds like they might be a couple million shorter, but again, in the grand scheme of things, that's not enough to make waves. So, they're saying the right things, and there's been little, comments along the way that have been in this same arena. So it's really just been, a guessing game as to how long this can continue to take. And, of course, the longer it takes, the more that you wonder. And that's what it's led to. So now to hear, two Arizona officials on the record on the same day and speaking a little further about it, a little more in depth about it is, I'm sure very reassuring for Pac-12 fans and enlightening for everybody else. And, it sounds like they're going to be close, like I said. So, now we await these final numbers and what that's going to look like.
All right. Now, the Arizona president, Michael Crow, also in an article with Piper Hansen and Alex Wakefield. Here's a quote from him. Paul, you also got this one. You were the one that got. All right. There have been no discussions with the Big 12 Conference on moving, Crow said. I mean, there's been discussions between everyone everywhere on all things related to where our conference is going and where stuff's going to end up and what's happening. We are committed to the Pac-12. Now, when he says discussions between everyone everywhere, I would think he's referring to all of the teams within the Pac-12, all the programs and universities, or is he outside, maybe even outside of that box?
I think that he has – I'm sure that they've had to have broached the topic, because if they don't, if none of these universities were sitting waiting for the possibility of this media deal to be a dud, a total dud, then they're crazy, right? They're absolutely nuts to not think of it in what's the doomsday scenario. So I think he's had discussions about. I think he's copping to having discussions about what the next move is for the Pac-12 or for their individual institution. But I don't think there's been anything formal where, Brett Yormark and the powers that be have sat down all together and said, okay, here's when it would happen. Here's what would have to happen. I think that's something that's not to that phase yet, because they don't know what their TV deal is. And if their TV deal is bad, then I would say that stuff would get ratcheted up, but they don't clearly expect it to be.
All right, here's one other quote, Craig, and then you, again, respond to it. We're close to knowing where, this is President Crow, Arizona State, we're close to knowing where we're going to be, and I think we're close to a deal. I think that the Pac-12 media rights became more complicated with the departure of USC and UCLA. Of course, they absolutely did. The media rights became more complicated also, as things always do, because markets go like this. They're up and down, up and down. But we have fabulous sports teams, and the remaining teams, we're going to get a good offer. We're in the final stages of that process.
So again, they are closing in on a deal, and it sounds like they're going to be content with it. I think the discussions thing is another one. I'll go back to the very beginning of this person said this person said that, and kind of it depends on where you look on what actually is being said. But there are absolutely folks who said there's zero discussions taking place, absolutely none whatsoever. And that would seem to indicate otherwise. Now, not to the extent of they're on the way and the invite's been sent and people like that who have said the extreme opposite of that. I think it's, somewhere in the middle. And maybe he hasn't, but somebody who knows somebody who's, whatever's had a small 5-minute conversation and maybe you could report that as, conversation. But, there clearly has been some level of preliminary discussion about just the state of things in general. I don't think that comes as much of a surprise, but how in-depth it ever got, it doesn't appear like it was anything but just shallow conversation, if anything. But yeah, I mean, they're going to be close. It sounds like it's around the corner. I think they've definitely flipped the PR or whatever angle that people want to use, the narrative, whatever that might be, however you would describe it, because all we've heard is from the Pac-12 over the last week or so. And now you've had, what is it, the Arizona State presidents now talked a couple of times.
Utah late last week.
Yeah, I think I'm going to have Utah. Yeah, Utah late last week. Now the Arizona schools both on the same day, or at least we're hearing it on the same day. And I know there's been other comments along the way, but this is for sure the most at length they've gone on the topic and the most assured they've been as far as the level of commitment and just being broader about the subject and reinforcing their expectations, because there's been little comments here and there, and you see what happens if somebody takes that comment and then takes a knife to it and dissects it, and it's like, well, this one sentence blurb here means, and what about, and like we get into that part of it, whereas I think that the more that they're talking today and the fact that you have a couple of voices, it's really, like I said, reinforcing kind of where they are, which is good if you're a Pac-12 person.
I'm going to read this text because this makes sense. At least it's also, all of us have learned quite a bit about television, media deals, and more, thanks to Bob Williams, thanks to Patrick Crakes, thanks to recently Jim Williams, thanks to guys even who are on the message boards, who are a part of businesses. Even our good friend Steve in Ohio, who has negotiated multi-million-dollar deals in his career as a salesperson, that started watching us when Cincinnati became someone that the Big 12 was looking at to add, and of course they did. Getting the media rights proposal to all members is the easy part, Craig and Paul. Let everyone digest the monetary value and the length, along with the real possibility of unequal distribution, and what platform the Tier 1 will be broadcast on.
Yeah, I mean, they've got to figure all that stuff out. I still think that.
How much would it have helped? Not that they needed to. And again, presidents aren't watching probably what's happening with social media, or ADs for the most part, although the Utah AD was. We've heard Mac Rhodes has told us he doesn't even do that. I'm sure he has people that alert him to certain things. How much would these comments 3 weeks ago, a month ago, 6 weeks ago, would it have made a difference, or are they just – it still would not have answered or tied the bow,
I don't think,
or dotted the I's?
I don't think it would have made much of a difference. It would have maybe given us some clarity on where they were thinking. But I don't know. 6 months ago, they clearly weren't even
to us either.
No, but 6 months ago, I think that they got caught. I mean, I don't think, I know. The Pac-12 got caught really flat-footed by Brett Yormark moving ahead.
Sure.
In line.
That everybody can agree on that, right?
Yeah.
Like, I mean, if you're like, I don't care if you're the most crazed Utah fan or Cal fan or whatever, like you can agree, like Brett Yormark, like got them on that, like was jumping in line. And I like that there's like this, I at least saw this from a couple people who, like, you know, it was like Ute 42 or whatever. So there's a little bit of a bias already built in, but acted as though that was like a crime or something. It's like, no, that's business. That was smart business on Brett Yormark's part to jump in line as far as landing what they wanted to land in terms of the networks that they would be on. That was just good business. And, yeah, it caught the Pac-12 off guard. I don't think there's any denying that.
Had it been flipped, then guess who would have been looking somewhere to add? Had the Big 12 been left with their pants down, then they would have, again, been in a position where they were vulnerable.
Yeah.
And
so,
he ended that.
Yeah, so I think that Brett Yormark made a genius move. I don't think that like everything he does turns to gold necessarily, but as far as that decision goes, or whoever came up with that, whether it was him or it was a school president or TV exec that popped in his ear and said like, hey, you might want to look into this. Whoever suggested that, it was a very smart move because, yeah, what we'd be talking about is, yeah, you'd eliminate all this realignment talk from the Big 12, Pac-12 perspective, but we'd be sitting here. And I don't know if the angst level would be quite as high with the Pac-12 TV deal taking this long. Certainly not, because there wouldn't be the added element of the Big 12 being secure. So, yeah, they probably would have just lollygagged along, probably would have been paid attention to about 95% less than it has been. And, yeah, then the Big 12 would just be sitting here for another year or two before actually going to the table. And, yeah, that would be pretty dire,
and not having the leverage of jumping ahead of the line and getting something done, and now working on things like this. And then we got to break because we are loaded today on the show. Today, the Big 12 released this. They are going to have in 2024 a Big 12 Pro Day up in Frisco. This is at the Star with the Cowboys headquarters. It is a phenomenal setting. They are going to host their own conference-wide Pro Day. And the NFL Network will broadcast it. Now, the NFL Network might broadcast at some of the pro days on a campus like Alabama. They were here for the RG3 workout back in 2012. This right here, they're going to make some money on this. Again, it may be small compared to what normally, but here's another idea of marketing, of getting exposure, and an event that now I wonder in 5 years will all conferences have their own pro day?
I think probably in less time than that. One of the things that allows you to do, so say you are a team that there's going to be a team in the conference next year that has 11 draft prospects, legitimately guys who are going to get drafted. Let's just say, for all intents and purposes, this year would probably be TCU and Oklahoma have those kind of numbers if they were doing that this year in the Big 12. Texas has more than they've had in a long time. But then you go to a team like, say, Baylor this year that has 3 or 4 guys, and 2 of them that will get drafted for sure, and the others that are kind of on the edge. Well, now it doesn't look like when the scouts come through, you're having a pro day with your 12 seniors, but only 2 they give a crap about. So it blends you into something else.
This is going to be
allows you
a
to
college
showcase the
version
league.
of Indianapolis.
Well, yeah, and that's the other thing is now for the NFL Network's perspective, they can have the big combine, and then they can, if all the other ones go, and the SEC and Pac-12 and everybody does this, then they have their little mini combines too, and it's more draft content for people like me who love the draft.
It would be easier for the
up.
Big 12 or the NFL Network to cover it too,
Yeah,
whether it's
absolutely.
the Big 12, the ACC, the Pac-12. Craig, final thoughts, and we have to take a break.
I want to talk more about this Pac-12 stuff, but I know we're busy. Yeah, I think it's a cool idea. I think anybody who's gone to pro days that are lackluster on certain years because you don't have a big class or you don't have some top prospects in a given class realize that it's kind of I wouldn't call it a waste of time because it's not a waste of time for the people involved, but like I think there's better ways to do it to make it better than just your Baylor Pro Day on a down year when there's like maybe a couple guys that could get drafted and that's about it. This will definitely bring more exposure for everybody involved, and it'll be interesting to see how big it might grow as far as the number of guys involved. But yeah, on the surface, I think it's a neat idea and a nice curveball to the norm, and let's see how it goes.
So that's coming up in 2024. It will be everybody a part of the Big 12, which would include the 12 teams, the 8 remaining, plus 4. Of course, Texas and Oklahoma will be a part of the SEC. I'm not sure how that works as far as even though they would still be technically a part of the Big 12 because the school year is still intact. We're now joined by Chuck Cooperstein, voice of the Mavericks, and as well-rounded of a sports journalist that I've ever known in all of my career of 40-plus years, joining us on 365 Sports. Chuck, we were talking about this, just a quick note. The Big 12 is going to have like a combined NFL combine-type deal now at Frisco at the Star. And it's like it makes sense. Your thoughts about the uniqueness of that decision by the Big 12?
Well, again, anything that allows Big 12 schools and Big 12 players to get greater visibility and maybe even, just more so on their own as opposed to being, thrown into the mosh pit with everybody else. How can that be a bad thing? I just don't see how there's any downside to that at all. I think Brett Yormark has been pretty creative, since he's come on the job here in the last 9 months. And I think he and his staff are to be applauded because they really are thinking out of the box and trying to do things to help the league be better and certainly help the league survive and thrive in a very, very strange world right now.
Chuck, what do you think the end game is for the Pac-12, Big 12, the conferences that are not the Big 10 and the SEC?
No, they're not. But I mean, I think the Big 12 is okay. I mean, I think the television contract they signed, guarantees them, as much, if not more money than what they would have had otherwise. I think they were really smart to jump out in front. I think the Pac-12 is in a lot of trouble. I don't know where they're going to go. Maybe do Oregon and Washington and Arizona State get picked off by the Big Ten, the Pac, and the Big 12 respectively. But the rest of the conference really holds very little media value, and that is the world that we are operating in right now. And I just can't see how a streaming deal works for anybody. Maybe it works in the sense that there's money that comes to the schools, but if you want to sit down on Saturday afternoon and watch college football and you're having to go to a streaming service and you can't switch around to games like you do when you're on DirecTV or your cable system or what have you, that's a non-starter. I know it's a non-starter for me. It may be a starter for people that are non-Paleozoic like you and me. But I one of the joys of sitting at home on Saturday is to be able to switch around and then, find a game. And maybe if the game is surprisingly good, stay with that game maybe a little longer than you might otherwise do so. I tell you what, unbelievable. I've got a guy at my door now.
That's okay. Go ahead and get it. And we'll wait for you to get back. That's fine.
Oh, I will call you back in a little bit, okay?
There we go. Okay,
right.
good. Craig,
okay,
that allows you to go back. This is live radio, TV, whatever right there. So there's Chuck. He's going to come back. We'll get him back on. Rob Douster from the field of 68 on the tournament at around 3:45 today. Craig, back to what you wanted to talk about more at length with the Pac-12 until we hear back from Chuck.
Well, I wasn't talking about that like I have like a comment to say. I just mean in general, I want to talk about it more and dive into it a little further. But, that's fine. I'll say on the Combine, again, there's given years where a Baylor, for example, might have like a guy or two that are legitimately going to be drafted. This year's one of those years. They got Siaki Ika, they got Connor Galvin, and beyond that, they might have like 10 XFL guys, and it's great to have those pro days and the XFL scouts show up, and now the USFL, and at one point in time it was the AAF, and whoever else is all playing right now. So you're going to have that regardless of your NFL caliber guys. But now if there is a year where you've only got a couple, but then BYU's got theirs, and Cincy's got theirs, and Houston's got theirs, and Oak State's got theirs, I just wonder how big it could get. That's, with 12 teams, that could be pretty big, but the bigger probably the better, because it'll ensure that all 32 teams will be there. They won't skip over Provo on a given year because there's only one guy and nobody's really that interested. So now, even if you don't have a great class per se, all combined, you're going to have enough ammo that, every scout, every team, every league is going to show up to see everybody in the conference, whether intentionally or not, because there's just going to be a collection of talent. So from that standpoint, I do think it's smart. I think the idea of making it kind of a combined event, you can really play that up like on NFL Network if you wanted to do it that route. So from that standpoint, I think it's pretty smart and a wise move. And I was more or less getting at as well as I've been to those pro days where it's pretty lackluster and you're just kind of
you cover it because you really have to.
You have to, not because I wanted to.
And you get comments from the one or two players at the 10 or 12.
And it's okay, this guy might go in the middle rounds, and that's cool. You're there to cover that guy. But, the fact that you're showing up to an event and you know that there's going to be, a big group to select from, to interview, to hear from and all that, I think that's a smart deal to put it all in one place.
Chuck Cooper's team back with us. Live radio TV at its best. Chuck,
there you go.
We continued on with the discussion about the Combine. You were discussing the streaming compared to linear television, and we've been discussing this now for months and months and months.
Yeah, I just don't see how it works. It maybe works, who knows, 5 years from now, 10 years from now, but these schools aren't worried about 5 and 10 years from now. They're worried about now. Because as we've seen in the world of college athletics over the last 15 years, how much earthquake-like changes have occurred in that period of time. Things just constantly being moved around. There's no stability at all. You've got to go for what you can get right now. And right now, streaming is not the answer, at least in my humble opinion.
Chuck, one of those changes is name, image, and likeness, and it is very interesting to me, and you were around during the the Pony Excess and what happened there. How do you think that those people involved, especially the administrators at SMU and people who had to claw out of the death penalty, feel like, looking back, that everything that they did, while illegal at the time and as shady as you could get, is almost essentially totally legal now?
It's the height of irony, isn't it? Mm-hmm. And sometimes irony really sucks. and yeah, look, it killed their program. It killed their program for almost 25 years. You know, I mean, it wasn't just a 2-year penalty and then you come back to play and everything picks up right where it left off. They never recovered. And in some ways, I mean, I guess, you know, Sonny Dykes, when he was at SMU, you know, got them to a point, and June Jones maybe did back when he was coaching them, you know, to where they could be, you know, really competitive and if not necessarily winning conference championships, but at least being competitive. Well, you know, again, where SMU was at the time of the death penalty, you know, if you take that and, you know, put it to today, well, they would be clearly where TCU was last January. They'd be playing for national championships. I don't think there's any question about that. But now, you know, they're not in a major conference. They have to struggle to get attention in their hometown of Dallas. And I don't think that they will ever recover from ultimately what happened with the death penalty, even if now they've put together, you know, a really nice program and one that certainly can appeal to Dallas area players who sometimes go away thinking that the grass is greener on the other side, but you know, basically saying, you know what, it's okay at home. I can come play at home and do well, and the NFL scouts will notice me if I play well enough and have a chance to be drafted.
Chuck, if you go ahead. I'm sorry, Craig.
Chuck, there's been some scuttlebutt, some smoke about SMU and the potential of a Pac-12 invitation. Obviously, George Kliavkoff was very visible at a basketball game, 2 or 3 weeks ago at this point, and that's kind of died down a little bit as those negotiations for the TV deal have continued. But what do you think a Pac-12 membership would do for SMU as a program? Would that excite the people of Dallas? Would that get more people on board if all of a sudden they were playing, you know, these California schools or West Coast schools, Arizona schools, as opposed to who they're facing now?
I mean, I don't see the fit with SMU. I mean, I think, again, the jump is to, you know, what is perceived to be a Power 5 league, but is the Pac-12 really a Power 5 league without UCLA and USC? I mean, I don't know. I mean, they're certainly not as strong. And from the Pac-12 standpoint, really, what does SMU give them? What does SMU give them? I mean, yeah, you know, maybe they give them a chance to recruit in Texas, which I guess certainly can help them. But there are many different ways that Texas kids can go now, and they don't necessarily have to go as far away as they would if they were going to the Pac-12. I mean, I think it's far more likely that the Arizona schools are coming east as opposed to the Pac-12 taking SMU to the west. I mean, SMU is looking for brand identification, if you will, with being in a Power 5 conference. But again, if people can't see them play, what's the point?
Chuck, the NCAA tournament officially began last night. 2 more games tonight. The Big 12 has 7 teams. We know how deep the conference. Kansas at 1, Texas red hot at 2, Baylor slipped to a 3, K-State 4, and then you have the up and down but dangerous TCU, Iowa State, and then West Virginia with Bob Huggins. Which of those teams are you a little bit not sold on maybe getting to the second weekend?
I think Baylor's got a problem.
Yep. Defense.
I don't. Scott Drew made his bones on defense and made that the ability to change defenses, play the zone, and then when he got better athletes, he was able to go back to playing man-to-man, and they would dominate people. And certainly you look at the championship team 2 years ago, that was a completely dominant backcourt where teams could never get into their offense. I mean, how they took apart Gonzaga in the championship game was as clinical as any performance I think that we've seen in quite some time. And Baylor doesn't have that right now. And they don't quite have the rim protection that they have. The guard shooting is a bit suspect. I think it's nice to have Flagler, as a lead guard. I think he's certainly more than capable. But I tell you what, as much as he was so up and down and frustrating to watch, but they miss Matthew Meyer. They miss Matthew Meyer a ton because of his ability to be able to shoot and spread the floor. But I'm not really sold on them. I think TCU's kind of a mess right now, too. I think they'll probably be able to get through the first game, but they won't beat Gonzaga. I think Kansas, frankly, is in big trouble. They did not get a good draw at all. Number one, not being able to be in the regional that could get to Kansas City, but I don't know that they would that they're getting out of the first weekend. I think if they wind up playing Arkansas in the second round, Arkansas is going to give them everything they want. Arkansas's got pros on their team now. I mean, you got two guys in Nick Smith and Anthony Black who are going to be lottery picks, and Ricky Council could very well be a first-round pick too. His age may work against him, but from a talent standpoint, he's a first-rounder. That's a bad matchup for Kansas because if Kansas has to rely on their defense right now. I think their offense is very spotty, and also I think if Bill Self is not available to coach, and this is no disrespect to Norm Roberts at all, because I do think he's been a very fine assistant. I think he did a good job last weekend in Kansas City. But Bill Self's one of the great in-game adjusters in the college game. And if they have to play Arkansas, I think, and Bill Self's not there, then they're really in trouble. They might be in trouble anyway.
Chuck Cooperstein with us on 365 Sports. When you look at Kelvin Sampson in Houston, where they are, a number one seed and obviously have had a heck of a run. Made a run last year, made a run 2 years ago until they ran into that buzzsaw from Baylor. Your thoughts about, are they more ready this year? I know Sasser's injury is a big deal. More ready this year to make even that run to get back to the Final Four? Absolutely.
I mean, all the metrics tell you that they're the best team in the country. Now, I'm not sure that they are, because I think it's certainly the presence of Brandon Miller and Quinterly and Clowney. I think Alabama may have more high-end NBA-ready players or level players than Houston does, although Houston has pros themselves. But no team plays harder than Houston. You will never outwork a Kelvin Sampson coach team. And for Houston, it basically comes down to whether or not they'll shoot. They will always guard. They will always really make it difficult for you. But sometimes their shooting goes haywire. And, this is a one and done type of tournament. One bad night and you're out. That's the one thing I would worry about with Houston, and especially if Sasser is not available, certainly for the second round game, which could be a really interesting game against either Iowa or Auburn. But, really, when they get to the Sweet 16, if he's not playing, I think they do become more vulnerable. But I love their team. I love how hard they play. And in the end, I do think Sasser will play. And I think it would be very, very surprising if they are not in the last eight. And just slightly less surprising if they weren't in the Final Four in Houston.
Coop, kind of a three-pronged question here, so bear with me. But Texas, the job Rodney Terry has done to put them in position, your thoughts on them as a contender and what he's been able to do? And on the flip side, know you're a Florida Gator, SEC guy. Curious how you feel about Chris Beard being named the new coach at Ole Miss this week.
Well, it certainly didn't take long for Chris Beard to get a job. Mm-hmm. I guess I'm a little surprised that Ole Miss didn't even wait until the tournament was over or something like that. But Chris Beard's a great coach. I mean, he is, and as long as he's legally in the clear, I don't see where Ole Miss has done anything wrong here. It'd be another story if there were outstanding legal issues, but there aren't. So why not go and hire him? He's a proven winner. He definitely knows how to recruit. And in a league that is getting better and better every year, and the coaching in that league is getting better and better every year, that was a big-time hire by Ole Miss. No question about that.
Chuck?
And
yeah, go ahead.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, and the first question was, again, real quick. What was the first question?
What do you think about the job Rodney Terry has done?
Rodney Terry. Okay, yeah. Rodney Terry should be the Texas coach today, full time. The not interim coach. He should be the head coach of the University of Texas. Now, again, I don't know if Rodney Terry is a great coach, but I do know that Rodney Terry, under really adverse circumstances, did a phenomenal job with that team. And maybe that means that ultimately he is a great coach. I don't know that he's necessarily, had shown it in the past, but given his performance this year under the most dire of circumstances, even if he has a veteran team, I mean, teams don't go through stuff like that and ultimately play as well as they play. And then, to a crescendo, hand a 20-pointer on Kansas in the Big 12 championship final. I mean, that was fantastic stuff. They're very versatile. They really guard hard. They shoot the ball okay. We'll see. I think, that he can recruit. I mean, look, Chris Beard hired him because he thought he could recruit. Right. So I don't know what they're waiting on unless they think they're going to hire Rick Pitino, which would definitely fit the Chris Del Conte mold. But, sometimes it's okay. Sometimes the guy that's sitting right in front of your nose is the right guy. And I do think Rodney Terry is the right guy right now.
Chuck, thank you, buddy. Appreciate your time as always. Mavericks voice.
Sorry.
Yeah. Good to have you.
Sorry about the interruption. About the interruptions.
No, it was great. It was great. It was fantastic. It's live, and we appreciate you for jumping back in with us. Chuck Cooperstein, voice of the Mavericks, with us on the tournament, on the Big 12 Combine in Frisco, and so much more. Coming up, Rob Douster, the field of 68 on the tournament. This is 365 Sports. IdealMRI.com in the Central Texas marketplace. They are there to help you find out, solve, get evidence of what is hurting you. Earlier today, I had an epidural on my lower back. The reason I knew that there were impingements was because of Ideal MRI. From an MRI, not as so much recently, but one that validated one recently of what I had last spring when it was on the right side of my vertebrae on my lower back. And today I had the epidural because the evidence was there that there was some narrowing, that there was something that shows some arthritis and maybe even worse than that. And so that is the evidence I was able to have, and also the doctors who helped treat me today. Ideal MRI, whether it's your shoulder, your back, whether it's your knee or your ankle or wherever it might be, can get evidence of what is hurting, what is wrong, so you can help have that treated and make it feel better. And also on top of that, only $497 or less every single time. Dr. Rob Maxey and his staff at IdealMRI.com.
Just as teams are celebrating on the courts, your mountaintop experience begins during the Jeep Celebration event at Allen Samuels in Waco. Get a 2023 Jeep Grand Cherokee Laredo with total values up to $5,500 on second and third row options, or a 2023 Jeep Gladiator Sport with up to $5,000 in total values. And if we don't have exactly what you want, we can help you build the new custom Jeep of your dreams. It's the Jeep Celebration event at Allen Samuels in Waco.
Do you or your kids get nervous about going to the dentist? Stonewood Dental, Dr. Steve Childress, he can help.
I've spent a career taking care of patients who as children had bad experiences, and now they're adults that hate going to the dentist. If I get a kid at 3 years old and they come every 6 months and it's a happy experience, it's normal for them. Now they have an accident at 6 or 7 or 8 at school. Now they have a broken tooth or a trauma, and they have to come here. They're used to lights, they're used to water in their mouth, they're used to experience, they already trust us. It's amazing what we can do with that kid without it being a negative thing. But if I see a 6 or 7 or 8 year old that's never been to the dentist, and now they have a trauma or an unfortunate unexpected toothache, it's harder to do that for that kid and it not be somewhat of a negative experience. So bottom line is I try to teach kids and adults and teenagers and everybody the way I'd want my family treated, which is where it's a necessary part of life. You just take care of it. It doesn't have to be that big a deal.
Learn more, stonewood-dental.com.
Baylor Scott and White Southwest Sports Medicine and Orthopedics, the team physicians for Baylor Athletics, diagnosing and treating all sports-related injuries, including concussions. These specialists also provide orthopedic services for athletes and non-athletes alike, whether it's knee or shoulder pain, a wrist injury, orthopedic spine care, and even an arthritis and total joint clinic. Trust the doctors Baylor Athletics trust. Baylor Scott and White Southwest Sports Medicine and Orthopedics wants to get you back in the game.
Hey, this is Bryce Petty, former starting quarterback and two-time Big 12 champion, and I know firsthand the importance of being in top shape both on and off the field. So listen up, men. If you're feeling beat down day in and day out and looking for that high-performance edge that separates the men from the boys, then look no further than the Petty Clinic Low T in Waco. Petty Clinic is a comprehensive men's healthcare clinic with an atmosphere catering to men. Board-certified Dr. Kent Petty has a special interest in offering the highest quality medical care to men of all ages. Some of the services offered include screening and treatment for low testosterone or thyroid, infertility, high blood pressure, diabetes, high cholesterol, sleep apnea, while offering comprehensive wellness exams and complete men's health lab panels. High performance men, remember, it's not just a Petty thing. This is Bryce Petty, encouraging you to reach out and Google search Petty Clinic Low T or go to pettycliniclowt.com and get your complimentary lab screening today.
It takes time to reach goals. It's a truth that applies to more than sports. It goes for your financial goals as well. You work hard for your money and you deserve an investment strategy that lines up with your game plan. And Chuck Verno, your Edward Jones financial advisor, can help. If financial investments aren't putting forth the effort you desire, stop by today for a financial review. Chuck Verno, 720 North 64th Street in Waco, 254-732-1161. Edward Jones, member SIPC.
Waco Regional Tennis and Fitness on Lakeshore Drive is premier, elite, life-changing experience where you can change your mind, body, and soul. Waco Regional Tennis and Fitness offers over 40 group exercise classes each week, including boot camp, indoor cycling, and more. If you haven't been there in quite some time, you're missing out on the improvements for our members. New flooring in the weight room and locker room, new paint and mirrors added in the weight room and group exercise room, with more new machines arriving over the next few months. New free weights, weight machines, TRX, rowing machines, stationary bikes, new treadmills, new elliptical machines on spacious weight room floor. Personal training with Christy London, Randall Corley, and Alex Botch, where you will be encouraged and motivated to grow. There's sauna, whirlpool, tanning bed, and kids club. The amenities are great. 16 tennis courts plus an 1,100-seat stadium court, 8 pickleball courts, youth and adult tennis and pickleball lessons. Visit our website, wacotennis.com, or visit Waco Regional Tennis and Fitness on Lakeshore Drive in Waco.
This is 365 Sports.
The 3 o'clock hour is sponsored by Waco Custom Marketplace. Meats, sweets, Texas treats, and a cut above the rest. 425 Lake Air Drive, Waco.
We are back. Rob Douster, thefield68.com. We're trying to track him down. And in the 4 o'clock hour, it will be booked solid as well. We'll have John Cooper, who works for Our Lad's Guide to the NFL Draft, on the Big 12 prospects from the highest ranked, from the Bijan Robinsons to maybe a few other diamonds in the rough, and then also Scott Drew, Baylor men's basketball coach. Garrett, put that up if you don't mind. So look at this story. How about this? This is from Matt Norlander, and it is the story that Bryce Drew and Grand Canyon arrived in Denver, and they didn't have all of what they needed. The airline didn't deliver the bags, the uniforms, the athletic gear per a Grand Canyon spokesperson. The practice in a couple of hours, and then hold up. Scott Drew, of course, and Baylor also in Denver, brothers. And so Grand Canyon's going to use Baylor gear to practice tonight. And Scott Drew's quote, "We're going to hook them up. What are brothers for?" Then Grand Canyon's cheer band equipment also all got to Denver. Everybody, clarinet, drum, sax, trumpet, and pom-pom, but not the basketball gear. Paul Robb said call him back.
Okay.
All right. So that's a unique story, and Scott will join us on that. We'll get an update from him on that at around 4:20 today. I'm told all that stuff arrived. This is Matt in Orlando, but not a single bag of athletic gear. The hope, of course, is Grand Canyon had its unis, warm-ups, shoes, all of it before. We'll have it all by the end of the night, and, of course, before they play on Friday in Denver. We're now joined by Rob Dowster, thefield68.com, an incredible site with basketball knowledge. Terrence Oglesby yesterday, Rob Dowster today. Rob, thank you very much. Which of the highest of the seeds, in your opinion, is the one that might have the most hickeys or concerns?
Well, first of all, I'm sorry that you had to talk to Terrence Oglesby. You know, that's always a stressful situation dealing with my guy over there. No, I think that Purdue is the one that I'm the most worried about when it comes to the number 1 seed, and that's just because I think that the draw that they got in the second round is one, really difficult, and two, probably unfair. I don't think that FAU should have been in the 8-9 game. That's below what they have been as a team this year. And Memphis, the way that they've been playing over the course of the last probably 6 weeks or so, it's just been a really good team. And they just so happen to have one of the best point guards in college basketball. And they have a starting lineup that's older than like half of the NBA. They have a player named DeAndre Williams, 26 years old. He was a 5-star recruit coming out of high school. You know what he can do in college basketball right now. So it's a difficult matchup just from that perspective. And then both of those teams can really get out and pressure in the backcourt. They have athletic guards. They like to defend that way. So it's not a great matchup for Purdue. So if there is a number 1 seed that I can see losing in the first weekend, it's probably the Boys.
Which 1 seed do you think has the easiest path? Is it Alabama, or do you think it's Houston?
Yeah, I mean, it's Alabama. You know, Houston got a weird draw because they're playing in Birmingham, and they get Auburn in the second round. Like, they're going to be basically playing a road game in the second round of the NCAA tournament. As the number 1 seed, as a team that spent like the majority of the year as the number 1 team in almost all of the metrics. So that's we'll see what happens there. But if I'm Kelvin Sampson, I send a nice stern letter, maybe a handwritten letter. I don't know if I'm email, a nice stern handwritten letter to get the point across that we should not be playing a road game as the number 1 seed in the second round of the tournament.
Rob, it's obvious that Baylor has some issues. One, defense, the worst in the Big 12 there. Offense can be explosive, but they've given up. So they've been routed a few times. Marquette, of course, the first one, and then the way they ended the year with Iowa State twice. Are they the team that won 10 of 11, or the team that maybe, we've seen maybe too much of late?
I think the complicated answer there is yes, they are both of them. So the thing about them is, like, when they get hot, when their guards are making shots, I don't know if anyone's going to beat them when they're at their best, right? When Adam slides on, LJ Cryer and Keontae George are all cooking like that. They're as dangerous as any team in college basketball, but they're kind of just relying on those 3 guys going out and making plays. Now, what we saw last year from teams like Miami is that when you have 3 really good guards that can just go out there and make plays, sometimes that's all it takes to be able to win 2, 3, 4 games in March, right? It's not a shock to see teams like that be able to make a run. Hell, I mean, UConn won the national title in 2014 as a 7 seed because they had 2 guards that could go out there and make plays. Baylor's got 3 of them. But I'm worried about the defensive side of the ball because that lowers your floor, right? If you can't win another way. You need your 3 guys to be going off to be able to beat good teams. And if they have an off night, if you happen to go up against a team that has like 2 good perimeter defenders, you're going to find yourself in a little bit of trouble.
Rob Dowster with us, the Field of 68 with us on 365 Sports.
Rob, what are your thoughts on Baylor in the first weekend? I mean, if they get out, they're likely going to have Arizona in the next weekend, but their matchups with UCSB and then either Creighton or NC State.
UCSB is tough. They're talented. They have a bunch of high major transfers there. They got a kid named Miles Norris that transferred from Oregon, the former top 50 guy. A kid named Andre Kelly that was like a borderline all Pac-12 player a year ago. And then their point guard, A.J. Harrison, like he's big, he's athletic, he's a dude. They're a good team. They're well coached. But I do think that Baylor's at the end of the day going to find a way to get it done. You know, talent has to matter, and they have more talent than Santa Barbara. If they end up getting Creighton in the second round of the tournament, I actually really like that matchup for them to the point that I don't even think Creighton's getting out of the first round. I've been all over Creighton all season long. My concern is the way they got to defend is they play drop coverage with Ryan Kalkbrenner at the 5. And the way to beat drop coverage is to have point guards that can just make plays in the pick and roll. NC State's got 2 of them in Terquavion Smith and Jarkel Joyner. Baylor's got 3 of them. That's not a great matchup for Creighton. So I think that I actually like their draw to get to the second weekend.
K-State 3-seed out east, Rob, facing Montana State, and then the prospects of either Kentucky or Providence. How you feeling about Jerome Tang and the Wildcats and the run that they could go on in his first year?
I'm a little bit worried about that matchup against Montana State. I think the way that you beat Kansas State is you got to have a really good on-ball point guard defender at the point of attack to slow down Marquise Noel, and you got to have a big athletic wing that can deal with Keontae Johnson. And if you have guys that can match up with those two, you pretty much just dry up everything that Kansas State wants to do offensively. They're a team that relies on their defense and those two guys. But if you can take away those two guys, then you got a real chance to beat them. So I think Montana State's going to give them a little bit of trouble. I don't know if they win. I think that's going to be a closer game than people expect. But you get past there. If I'm Kansas State, I'm pretty happy with the second round. They're all there. Providence has been in all kinds of trouble since all these rumors about Ed Cooley going to Georgetown to surface. And then Kentucky has just not been very good all season long.
Rob, with the Big 12 as deep as they were, as good as they were, you kind of get the sense that they have a relief, a breath of fresh air, that they get to play other people. Or are they beat up by the time they get to play other people?
You know what? If you're the coach, I think what you need to do is after whatever happens in that first round game, just go the other direction with the narrative, right? Like, if you get upset, then what you got to say is, it's too physical in this league. We got beat up. We got tested. Maybe we can just get you more cupcakes in the offseason. But if you make a run, then it's like, yeah, you know what? We were battle tested. We were ready to go. I think it's probably a good thing to have games like that. Once you get into March, you need to have the experience of playing under pressure. You need to know what it's like to have to go out there and make a play when you feel like your heart's beating through your chest because of the moment, right? You got to understand what it means to play on national television, to play with like a national broadcast there, to play on the biggest stage. So I think at the end of the day, it does help. But I mean, I think without question, a lot of those guys are kind of beat up and physically worn out by the season. But it's like that everywhere, right? You play a 4-month-long season, it's just at the end of the day, like, you only got so much energy. There's a reason why you get like the NBA season. You see a lot of these guys doing like load management stuff. It's wear and tear. It's long. It's a lot of travel. It's a lot of nights where you're up until like 4 a.m. and you have to get up and go to a 9 o'clock class. Like there's a level of exhaustion that kind of sets in. I do think that once you get to the dance and once those lights turn on, you go to that first press conference, the juices start flowing, you start getting that adrenaline rush. Like, they'll be all right. I'm not too worried about it. And also, like, they're like 21. How tired can you really be when you're 21?
Yeah, right. Rob, with that in mind, how do you feel about the idea just being bandied about an expanded tournament?
No. Hard pass. There's only one you know what? I'll take that back. There's one exception that I'll make for it. If they allow the regular season mid-major champions to have automatic bids, and what they basically say is, look, we're going to go to like an 84-team tournament or something like that, right? But what they do is they allow every team that won their regular season championship to have an automatic bid. And then if you also win your conference tournament championship and you win both of those, then you don't have to play in one of in the Tuesday or the Wednesday game. You automatically get to go to the field of 64. If we do that, I think I'm in on it because that prioritizes the regular season a little bit more. And it allows you to get more than mid-majors. And at the end of the day, like, we love blue bloods and we love these big Final Fours and we love these great matches. Like, you know what? In 2022, 2 of the 3 most watched basketball games, period, not just college, anywhere, including the NBA Finals, involved St. Peter's. That's what people want to see. They want to see the little guy make a run. And if you get more of those little guys in there and more of the good little guys, not just teams that have to pull off an upset in March, teams that went like 17 in one of their leagues. Get more of those teams in, you're going to have more underdogs making runs. You're going to have more Cinderellas. Might be more of a mess, and you might have more teams. But you know what? I've kind of come around to the fact that more basketball, now that I'm in this business and I make my money off of getting views and getting attention and getting podcast downloads and all that, more games isn't necessarily a bad thing. Let's ramp this thing up, you know?
Well, I mean, Rob, I don't want you to have to change the name of your website, though.
So no, we I know that's the big problem we're going to have to run into.
Yeah.
I'm already sitting on the field of 80 handles on a couple of different social platforms.
See, there you go.
Got to get ahead of that one.
Yeah, just if before it happens, unload your merch like you would not believe, or put it back and be like the classic, the throwback. A&M at Texas could very well and probably will play in the second round, especially given how hot A&M was. Alabama game in the championship notwithstanding. Did A&M get underseeded, and how does the committee even kind of let that happen? Because Texas has had a great year, and they might be playing a 7 seed that's really a 4 seed.
Well, I think they got underseeded for what they've been the last 8 weeks, but they didn't get underseeded for what they've been the entire season, right? Like, we can't just pretend those losses in November, December didn't happen. We can't just pretend like they didn't lose to those mid-major teams that they lost to. Right? We want November basketball to matter. It's got to matter when it comes to the selection committee. And you want a better seed, Buzz? Go out and schedule somebody in the offseason. This is the second straight year that you've kind of been screwed because you decided not to schedule anybody. So I don't really want to hear it. The precedent has been set to you. Go out and schedule yourself. This one's on you. But at the same time, I do think that they're going to – that matchup with Penn State, like, you can't sleep on that one. Okay, Penn State plays one of these weird styles that is difficult to prepare for if you've never seen it. They basically have like a 6'5" point center in Jalen Pickett that will hit the ball in the post, will spray it around. They get a bunch of 3-point shooters. Like, if you've never seen their offense before, it's not the easiest thing to deal with on like short prep. So I think that's going to be a little bit more of an intriguing matchup than people are giving it credit for.
Rob, which double-digit seed? We've heard about Kent State, or we know about Paul Mills and Oral Roberts and what they did, which was not many people have ever done that ever. But is there one in particular that jumps out at you? You hear a lot about others.
Furman. I'm all in on Furman.
The Paladins.
Furman money line. I got Furman in my Sweet 16. I think that they're old, first of all. Second of all, they have 2 pros at the mid-major level, which is not something you see all that often. They're going to be more athletic than Virginia. And the biggest thing is this. The way to beat Virginia's pack line defense is to have shooting over the top. They got shooting over the top. They have guys that can drill jumpers. And this is not the kind of Virginia team that we normally think of, right? Like, this is Tony Bennett doing a great coaching job to get a bunch of guys to be able to be as good as they are. Like, their talent level is not – think about the best Virginia teams. Joe Harris, Malcolm Brogdon, Anthony Gill, DeAndre Hunter, Ty Jerome. Like, they got pros on pros on pros, man. Like, they got NBA players up and down that roster that are old. That's what you normally think of when you think of a Virginia team. This team's got Reese Beekman, who's like a sophomore. It's not the same kind of a beast. I think that they can get got.
We'll have now a graphic with your name and pay. Furman. That will be how we promote. Hey, thank you very much, Rob. We know you're busy as heck. Enjoy the tournament. I know you will. We appreciate all of the impact that we have on the show with your website and the guys around it. Thank you.
Yeah, well, before I do that, I'm going to enjoy the rest of this 4-year-old gymnastics class that I have attended.
Don't get on that balance beam. Don't do it. No.
I won't, man. I won't. I already threw on my back today.
All right. Rob Dowster, the field of 68. John Fanta, who responded he might be able to join us next week. He's packed. Rob's packed. Terrence Oglesby yesterday. And then, of course, Jeff Goodman, a part of that website. They do a fantastic job. John Cooper, Our Lad's Guide to the NFL Draft, coming up next on some Big 12 prospects. And then Scott Drew, their practice running slightly late, and so we'll have him around 4:40 today. It all worked out perfectly. Craig Smoak, it is his birthday. We didn't even say that at the start. We had a picture, Garrett, of course, and there's a, what was it, Paul? A candy jumble, whatever. What you have?
Yeah, it was from his mom and sister, so they sent him an edible arrangement.
Cindy and Jennifer sending that to Craig today, a big old thing of candy, and, of course, the cookie cake and more. This is 365 Sports.
Richard Carr, Buick GMC Cadillac, they are the people that you can count on for a great deal on a new vehicle, a great deal on a pre-owned vehicle, great customer service, really whatever you're looking for when it comes to your automobile. And what you're trying to do with it or the one that you're potentially trying to get. They have a Texas-sized selection in stock and on the lot right now at Richard Carr, over 100 vehicles ready to drive home today. That includes dozens of Sierra trucks like the 2023 GMC Sierra SLT 1500. It also includes luxury SUVs like the 2023 Buick Envision, and both models, and as well as their other offerings on the lot. And get special financing, special pricing, special deals. Just talk to the good folks over at Richard Carr. Whenever you email them, give them a phone call, or stop by the dealership. They've got a lot full of quality pre-owned cars if you want to go that route, as well as trucks, many of them under $20,000. They're thoroughly inspected, they're affordable, and they are ready to finance and ready to drive for almost any credit rating. Quality vehicles ready to take off the lot today, pre-owned and brand new. But perhaps you're not even in the market for a vehicle. You're just somebody who's trying to get that oil change or tires fixed or whatever the upkeep might be, or just keeping it, like a regular doctor's checkup. Keep your car inspected and running tight. Well, they have a great award-winning customer service department that's standing by to keep you on the road and keep your vehicle operating at its highest level. Go to richardcar.com to see their service specials or to set an appointment for quick and reliable repair. They've been in business now for 23 years in Central Texas, and in that time, they built a reputation as the people you can count on for your automotive needs, run by proud Central Texans. Log on to richardcar.com today. Call now or go see them now off Highway 6 at the Imperial exit.
Is the soundtrack of life at Baylor.
There's a spark in your heart and a fire that's in your eyes.
If you're ready to take a big step toward a bright future, tap the banner below to check out the music video for a glimpse of life at Baylor University, where lights shine bright.
Stepping into a new pair of boots is great, but stepping into the boots of a U.S. Army officer can also add confidence and leadership skills to your son or daughter's career path. There are more than 150 occupational specialties to help them find the best fit for their future. See all the things your son or daughter can achieve in our boots at GoArmy.com. U.S. Army Waco Recruiting Company, 254-598-8131 or 254-776-1543.
Let Camille Johnson Realtors guide you seamlessly through the process of buying your dream home or selling your current one. Commercial, farm and ranch, or residential, Camille Johnson Realtors can smoothly and successfully lead you through any transaction. With a team of 28 experienced agents who are excited about serving you, Camille Johnson Realtors services the entire greater Waco area. If you're in the market to buy or sell, contact Camille Johnson Realtors, 104 Midway Center in Woodway, or find them online at www.camillejohnson.com. Camille Johnson Realtors, elegant, charming, warm. Welcome home.
Pizza, burgers, and Bears football. There's no place around Waco that serves them all other than Bubba's 33. Come show your green and gold and enjoy some of Waco's best food and beverages while watching your favorite team, the Bears. When real Bears fans get hungry, Bubba's 33 is the #1 spot for ice-cold drinks, hand-stretched, stone-baked pizzas, and bacon-infused burgers. Join us for indoor or patio dining. Bubba's 33, Waco's restaurant and proud supporter of Baylor Bears football. Sick 'em, Bears.
At Ideal MRI, we feel blessed to be a part of the Waco community. We're a small family business right here in Central Texas, and our goal is to bring down the cost of health care while maintaining high quality. At times like this, the cost of health care has never been more important, and unfortunately, significant illnesses and injuries still occur. That's why Ideal MRI is open and here to serve you through the difficult time. We offer premium MRIs just like a hospital with state-of-the-art technology and specialists, but you'll pay less. Sometimes thousands of dollars less, whether you're using insurance or not. At Ideal MRI, we accept most insurance and there are no hidden costs, even offering financing if that's needed. Everything included in the price, and you'll not get something as a surprise in the mail later on. If you need an MRI, ask your doctor about Ideal MRI. They'll know. You can schedule an appointment safely from home online in minutes at idealmri.com or give us a call, 833-IDEAL-MRI, idealmri.com.
There are 26 letters in the alphabet, over 600,000 words in the dictionary, and just 3 of them said together can change everything. Let's order pizza. Those 3 words lead to dough made from scratch and 3 fresh signature cheeses that blanket golden crust in a heavenly melt on Marco's Pizza that'll blow your mind. So visit marcos.com to order and stop by Marco's Pizza in Belmead, China Spring, Woodway, and in Robinson. Marco's. Pizza lovers get it.
This is 365 Sports. Text us at 254-339-1122. The text line is sponsored by Riverbend Liquor and Wine, with the most extensive variety of craft beer in Waco. A hidden gem on Lakeshore Drive and 19th Street.
You know, I remember the first time when Our Lad's Guide. I got a guide in the mail back. This is 20 some years ago, when they, of course, had the Our Lad's Guide to the NFL Draft. Jim Sabo, Dan Shonka. Dan is recovering after having a health issue, and spoke with him yesterday or 2 days ago, and he said he wasn't available, but recommended John Cooper, who joins us now. And this is a great place, great site to get some feedback of Our Lad's Guide to the NFL Draft. Joins us on 365 Sports. John, thank you very much for your time and your patience today. If you were an NFL team and you know what the values of running backs can or cannot be, that kind of changes. In your opinion, where will Bijan Robinson, the running back at Texas, in your opinion, probably go?
Well, I think it's in somewhere between 10 and 15. I think he's really special. He could be a top 10 back or a player, but if you take a look at some of the needs of some of these teams, especially with most likely quarterbacks going off the board, he might not be in the top 10. But there's a thought that maybe the Bears, well, not the Bears, but maybe the Bears, if they were still at, or the Bears not at 9, might look at him now that they have that 9th pick.
John, Jalen Carter had a rough pro day today. He was 9 pounds heavier than he was at the combine just a couple weeks ago. Didn't run well, looked gassed. Does that affect your ranking of him, and how far do you think he falls given that and the arrest and kind of everything that's around him right now?
Well, he's not going to be the number 1 pick in the draft like a lot of people were saying a lot earlier. I think obviously there's a discipline issue. They're going to have to check on the, some of the stuff that, as far as what happened with the drag racing. That by itself probably wouldn't be enough to drop him. But if they find some other things, the NFL with their service that looks into those things, you might see him fall. If it's me, based on those 2 things, if I'm looking at, for example, let's say Will Anderson, I want the pass rusher, but I also want to tackle, that would probably be enough to push me over to Will Anderson at that point. But he's not going to drop that far as of right now.
John, what's your, summary of the top quarterback prospects? How do you view them as far as their potential and how you expect that to go come April with the order of those guys? And obviously depends on needs. And we saw Carolina, obviously shuffle things just a few days ago. But what do you think that means for the quarterbacks in this draft?
Well, the one thing that is just to speculate, they went and signed Andy Dalton. And, similar to what the Bears did, the Bears knew they had a quarterback that was going to take some time, and they thought Dalton could be the starter. And while they bring this guy along, that tells me that they may be looking at Anthony Richardson because he's, the guy that's considered the best athlete, maybe the best potential of the 4 quarterbacks, but he's certainly not ready at this point in time. There's too much inaccuracy, too much inconsistency. But, if we were going to just rank them purely with the way we've got them, it's going to be, he would be the 3rd guy, but another team might look at him and say, you know what, my quarterback coach can make this kid into a player. Just give me some time. Andy Dalton buys me some time. So that might be an indicator as to what they're looking at. Because, Stroud would be the guy that's probably most ready to play of those guys. Bryce Young's a great athlete. And, Will Levis, we think he's a little bit behind those 3 guys.
You mentioned the Stroud and then with Young. With what Carolina did, you don't make that trade to move up to get a project, do you?
No, I wouldn't think so. But the only reason I say that is because they signed Andy Dalton.
Mm-hmm.
You know, if Stroud is the guy, I would think most teams look at him as the guy that you know, if we're rebuilding our football team, we could plug him in right away and let him play. You know, as a rookie, we're giving him a lot of money, so let's let him go. So that's the only reason, and it's purely speculation on my part. I don't know that's going to happen, but if it's me, I'm going to take Stroud. But I didn't just sign Andy Dalton either.
How long do you think it would take for someone like Anthony Richardson?
Well, you know, the one thing is, you know, I watch a lot of video, and I get to see. I happen to watch a lot of defensive backs that were playing against him this year, and so for 2 quarters of every game, I'm looking at what he looks at. And the one thing I will say for him, you know, they do play an NFL-style offense, and there's a lot of reading of triangles out there. And he makes an effort to look off, and he makes an effort to find alternate receivers. You know, the ball sails on him sometimes. He makes slow decisions every now and then. I think a good quarterback coach will look at him and say, hey, I can work with this kid, but I realize it's going to take time. And if he can sit behind a really good, polished NFL veteran, you know, that maybe isn't as good a player as he is long term, but a guy that knows what he's doing, I think that can help him. And I think, you know, we can make a player out of him in a year. I think it'll take a year for him, you know, at least to develop. And one old scout once told me a long time ago, you really never know what you've got in a quarterback in the NFL until you get him in your building and you start working with him. You can interview him, you can watch him at pro days, you can see game film, but you don't know for sure how he's going to adapt to shorter windows, the bullets flying faster. You just don't know until you start working with him.
So we obviously know TCU had a great year. They've got a large class of NFL prospects. There are a couple in particular that we saw back in high school just a few years ago. Quentin Johnston, obviously the stud wide receiver. I'm curious your thoughts on just where he stacks up in the pecking order. But also Travius Hodges-Tomlinson, the Thorpe Award winner, terrific player, playmaker. But that height, I have to imagine that's somewhat of a concern for teams. How much of a concern, how much does that change, you know, how he's viewed as far as the draft goes? But your thoughts on Quentin Johnston and Travius Hodges-Tomlinson of TCU?
Well, we like both of those guys a lot. You know, I think Quentin Johnston, you know, we think he's a first-round pick. You know, maybe not the top guy or anything like that, but we think he's in the top 4. You know, at least of those receivers. And again, you know, there's people that are going to look at these guys, you know, a little bit differently maybe than we do, but that's a guy that we really like. Solid speed. He can catch the ball. He can go up and get it. He's got a catch radius. So there's a lot of good things about him. Now, the other guy you're talking about, we've got him stacked, we think, maybe higher than some other people do. We got him right around as the 10th best cornerback, maybe even 9, maybe 11, you know, as far as those guys are. We think he's a potentially a second round pick. Obviously he's short, but he can run and he can cover, and he plays a lot tougher than your typical 5'7" and change defensive back. You know, we like him, and you know, we think he can be a slot corner, but he's obviously played outside corner as well, and you know, he's got some toughness for a smaller player, and he's got what we call a catch radius. He can go up and get it, and it's not like he's, you know, standing static at 5'7", He plays taller than that, and you know, we really like him, and you know, he would be. In fact, I just got done having a conversation with him with a former NFL head coach who does some of the stuff we're doing now, and he was saying that, yeah, this is a guy that, you know, if he's 5'10", you know, he's going to go a lot higher. But that said, don't turn your back on him.
John, you don't know this, but we covered Travius Hodges-Tomlinson in high school, and you're talking just a ball player. Now, again, eventually the levels you keep going up, things eventually make it more difficult. But we saw a play, you guys remember, against a high school game here in Waco, where he took a ball from a young man who was about to get inside the 5-yard line, just peeled it out of his arms. And this is a star. This was a star running back, and he just basically, like a can opener, made the play and went like 90 yards for a touchdown. And so when does just being a ball player come into effect rather than all the other intangibles?
I guess I'm old school, and the fact that he's a ball player really goes a long way with me. I mean, there was that Williams, the kid from Houston last year, small corner, that he could go out and get it along with return skills, and he played well in the NFL this year. And I think you're going to see the same thing with Hodges Thomas. He's a football player. He can go up and get to the catch point, and he can do things that not every athlete can do, even though he's short. And in some ways, that's going to work for him because people are going to look at him and, they might underrate him a little bit. I'm not.
John, is this the best tight end draft that we may have seen?
Everybody seems to think so. And, I'm not disagreeing. I think we look at, potentially, maybe 6 of these guys going in the top 3 rounds, and high in the third. It's really good. I don't know if the depth is there, that in terms of I don't think there's 20 tight ends in this draft, but I think there are 6 really, really good ones.
Apu Ika, or Siaki Ika from Baylor, big nose tackle. I guess the phrase that a lot of people like to use with guys his size and shape and all that is that, people like him don't grow on trees. He's rare in that regard. What have you seen from him? What's kind of the scuttlebutt you feel like on his prospects, and what seems to be a logical landing spot for him?
Well, he's a guy that is probably going to be in that second day somewhere, second, third round. We like him, obviously. We've seen him. He's more than just a space eater. He's got some lateral ability, and he gets a push. He's big, tough kid that, he's going to play. And it's not a great year for defensive tackles. I think there's, Carter's the only one that we think is a bona fide first-round pick. And then after that, you got a lot of guys, and he's one, and the kid from Baylor is one of them, that fits in that mold. It depends upon what you want. What are you looking for? You want a street technique? You want a 1? Do you want somebody that can, move from a 4-eye all the way down to a 0? Are you looking for versatility, or are you looking for that guy to, play that 1 and maybe 2 and 2-gap play and play off blocks and play the run and get some push?
John, we appreciate you. We'll have you on the next 3 Wednesdays, including today at 4 o'clock Central, around that time, to kind of discuss, and we'll look at different position groups or whatever. Thank you for your time. Send our best, as I've already done, but send our best again to Dan and his recovery, and we appreciate your time and what Our Lads Guide does.
Well, thanks a lot. We appreciate it.
John Cooper, Our Lads Scouting, Our Lads Guide to the NFL Draft, a fantastic NFL Draft. You can lean on that. It really, really is very, very good. When we come back, he's ready. Scott Drew on supplying his brother's basketball team with practice gear tonight. And also, they're in Denver. They have a game against UC Santa Barbara. Scott Drew and Baylor. He's next right here on 365 Sports.
Riverbend Liquor and Wine, Lakeshore Drive and North 19th Street, a hidden gem in Waco. Look, let's just talk about locally crafted Texas bourbons. They've got them there. Balcones, Devil's River, Garrison Brothers, TX, you name it, they've got. I got a great bottle, a fantastic bottle of Garrison Brothers there a few weeks ago. Oh, man. It's one of those ones where it might wind up being my special occasions bottle. It was so good, but they always have great stuff that rolls through there, different varieties, different kinds. So excellent. Riverbend Liquor and Wine. Check them out on DoorDash. They also have a great Instagram account where you can see their latest promotions and ads to their roster of products. Everything's great there. The customer service, love it. Love going there. Love going and doing my shopping there. Riverbend Liquor and Wine, Lakeshore Drive and North 19th Street, behind the bank.
Cars priced right, both day and night. At Richard Car in Texas. Trucks built for you, red, white, and blue. At Richard Car in Texas. Cars that zoom with lots of room. At Richard Car in Texas. Count on us, a dealer to trust. At Richard Car in Waco, Texas.
Automatic Chef Canteen is a full-service micro-market vending and office coffee provider with state-of-the-art vending equipment, a wide variety of products, and offering custom-fitted micro-market vending office coffee solutions for your employee break room. You want a full break room solution and a workplace oasis? Well, Automatic Chef Canteen, locally owned and operated for over 50 years in Central Texas, also includes in-house mechanics on call 24/7 for fast, reliable service and maintenance. Automatic Chef Canteen, 6900 Imperial Drive in Waco, or online at automaticchefcanteen.com.
After my first car accident, I feared the biggest damage would be to my wallet. I expected a mountain of bills and a long, drawn-out process. But my Texas Farm Bureau insurance agent was there when I needed her and helped me get back on my feet and in my car in no time. Instead of a hassle, I got reassurance and a quick recovery.
Stop by and see our agents at one of our 3 McLennan County locations.
Coverage and discounts are subject to qualifications and policy terms and may vary by situation.
Waco Custom Marketplace is your hometown grocery store with a full-service butcher shop and bakery. Hi, this is David Smoak. The butcher shop can take your customized orders for seafood, pork, and poultry and custom cut your favorite steaks from bacon wrap fillets to T-bone to bone-in ribeyes. Cut specifically the way you want. They have Norwegian salmon fillets, catfish fillets, sliced ham or turkey and lunch meat, variety of cheese available, and several options of sausage links, fresh chicken breast or whole chickens, sliced bacon, pork chops, ground beef, marinated beef, and chicken fajitas, and always large briskets available, plus fresh vegetables. So the great product, customer service, and family tradition of the Bauer family continues at Waco Custom Marketplace, open Monday through Saturday. A full-service butcher shop and bakery available. Waco Custom Marketplace, 425 Lake Air Drive in Waco, or WacoCustomMarketplace.com.
In the market for a quality metal building? Since 1943, Pioneer Steel and Pipe has helped Central Texas residential and commercial customers with metal building design, panel options, building components, and trim options. Pioneer Steel and Pipe's residential line is energy efficient, offers low maintenance, reduces insurance payments, is impact resistant, and carries up to a 45-year limited warranty. In addition, they can also help you find a metal building contractor for your project. Pioneer Steel and Pipe with locations in Waco and Bryan and at pioneersboys.com.
TFNB Your Bank for Life is the official local bank of Baylor Athletics. Find out why more Central Texas are making TFNB their bank for life. Sign up for our Edge checking and savings accounts to earn interest or cash back. With 5 convenient locations and an award-winning mobile app, banking has never been easier. TFNB Your Bank for Life. Member FDIC.
This is 365 Sports, powered by Sikkim365.com.
The 4 o'clock hour is sponsored by Boozer's Jewelers, the wedding ring store, specializing in custom jewelry and repair, all in-house.
Now here's David Smoak, Paul Catalina, and Craig Smoak.
All right, we're in studio again today. I'm over on the guest chair. Paul and Craig on set as we just kind of changed it up a little bit. And Scott Drew, Baylor men's basketball coach, joins us on 365 Sports. And so it's good to have a brother in the same city when the other brother needs something, right?
It sure is, isn't it?
So,
by the way, we will bill him later.
So how did that kind of go about? Did he approach you, or you hear about it? How did that all work?
Oh, we were in practice, and Luke Simon got the call from GCU that all their basketball stuff is in Phoenix. So how can we help? So anyway, it's great that because they practice today, they'll have their stuff by tonight, but we'll be able to help them practice today. And I remember once we were in that situation, we were in Syracuse, and at one point it looked like we were going to have Syracuse uniforms on for the game. And I can tell you one thing. Syracuse would have won the game either way, you know? So, but it's great to be able to help them. Looking forward to seeing my brother and parents hopefully later tonight.
Scott, what has the week off been for you guys? I know you wanted to make a deeper run of the Big 12 tournament. But here you are, and you had that week off, and it looks like maybe you need it a little bit, especially if you're Langston and want to get some practices in.
Yeah, I can tell you that coaches love practice. Players love games. So we got better this week. Got healthier, shored up, and obviously.
We lose him?
No, hold on. Something happened here. There we go. Hold on. Sorry about that, Scott. There, go ahead.
Yes. Did you hear me, or did we cut out?
We cut out for just 1 second.
Oh, I said hopefully what we did was we're able to improve on the areas that we struggled in our 2 losses against Iowa State. And I know I feel good with where we're at. And now, most importantly, we got better and no one got injured.
Coach, does the feeling, is there a different sense of urgency knowing that, hey, it's win or go home from here on out, whereas, early in the year you suffer a loss, you get a win, you're like, okay, hey, there's more to come. Big 12 tournament, hey, there's still the NCAA tournament. Now, I know that it's all about keeping things the same, but is there a different level of or edge to hitting the court this time around?
But definitely, this is the time of year when it's down to your last game. You can tell who the seniors are because they have a little more in the tank, and they don't want it to be the last time they put on a uniform. It's a little trickier nowadays knowing who's a senior and who's not because with the extra COVID year. But definitely, I look for our upperclassmen to do a great job leading us and making sure we're competing each and every possession.
How did the players react to? Obviously, no one likes to lose, but the dominance on the boards, and obviously you've discussed this throughout the year. The defense, of course, has struggled at times, and you look at the analytics. How have they questioned, almost in a way, if anyone has thought about they're not playing hard or their toughness? Is anything like that been brought up?
Well, I think first and foremost, if you're embarrassed, that's the best way to improve. And we were all embarrassed. We haven't been out rebounded. I had Matt Roberts look. The record books go back to 2000. So, I mean, our first year we had 5-6 scholarship players and a bunch of walk-ons. We never got out rebounded by 27. So, all of us were embarrassed. And it's not something just centers or bigs or guards or play. I mean, it's all of us. As a staff, we didn't prepare them well enough for the physicality. And the good thing is, you look at it, and offensively, we did a lot of good things. Defensively, our first shot defense was 38%, which was tremendous. So we had one weakness, and that was we couldn't get a rebound. And with that, if you look in all year long, if we were getting pounded on the glass, you're like, hey, we can't rebound. But that wasn't the case. Hopefully, that's an eclipse and not something that happens again. Because, again, we were second analytically in the conference offensive rebounding using conference stats, and we've been top 18 all year long offensively. And defensively, at one point, we even got up to a second or third best defensive rebounding team. And then after that, I think we're 5th or 7th after the last 2 Iowa State games. But my point is, if you bench press 300 pounds, it's easier to get back to 300 pounds.
Mm-hmm.
If you've never been there, it's hard to get there. So we are a good rebounding team. We're not a soft team. And credit Iowa State. And I think our staff did a better job preparing our players to be more successful on the glass come NCAA tournament.
Did your team get a little discouraged at the end of that one after the second one in a row and needed maybe an emotional restart?
We don't like losing. We're the 9th overall seed out of 363 schools. Played the 3rd hardest schedule. We got competitors, we got winners, and I think why we're successful is nobody is good with losing. So, again, it's a one-game tournament. In sports, if things are one game, you never know what's going to happen. And that's why it's the toughest tournament. That's why it's called March Madness. In baseball and in NBA, I mean, you're 3 of 5, 4 of 7, so the cream rises to the top. But in a 40-minute game, anything can happen, and you got to be on point. And everyone that's here is here for a reason. All of them are good, and the parity's in an all-time high in college basketball because you have 5th and 6th-year guys for the first time. So if you look at all the Ken Palm analytics, fewer 18-year-olds are playing. Fewer 18-year-olds are playing on teams that are good. Most teams that are good got 22, 23, 24-year-olds, and a lot of mid-majors, other Power 5 schools got older guys. So it evens the field, because if everybody's relying on good recruits, there's not enough good recruits to go around. So now how you and when I say good recruits, like elite freshmen who come in and play and sophomores who play, there's not a ton of them that do that. But there are a lot of 23-year-olds, and I think parents that have had an 18-year-old and 23-year-old probably can tell you there's a difference.
Yeah, no question. Is there a sense of a breath of fresh air that you get away from playing the battering ram or the Big 12? Does that come into play?
No question. And it's a two-edged sword. And when I say that is, one, are you too banged up and broken when you get into tournament time? And I would tell you no, because last year I think we're 6-0 or 7-0 in the first round with the Big 12 teams. But I mean, you in the Big 12 playing the round robin, everyone knows all your plays, everyone knows all your tendencies. Nothing comes easy. And when you get into the tournament, people don't have that. So things are easier as long as you're not too beat up mentally and physically to play well in advance, and you haven't lost confidence, because there's a difference in winning 5 games in a row or 10 games in a row versus coming off 2 or 3 losses in a row.
Who has to play better other than everybody? But is there a player in particular you're working on even more this week because you need him because of how things ended?
Well, I think you can say that Langston, if he's able to play, that helps add to your physicality at the guard spot, adds to your depth at the guard spot. I know John, we've been able to rest him a little more and get him a little fresher the last couple of days, and I think that will help. I think Josh has really been coming on, and I think he's going to have an opportunity to give us a lift. And then with that, I think you look at Jalen's coming off a game of 28 points, and I know people will be keen on him a little bit more, but that's what makes a great team. It's not one guy. Like as I'm thinking through this quick, like there's not one. What makes a good team is one night someone's going to shoot a little bit better than another. When you go into a game and you're worried about 4 or 5 guys, that's a lot harder to defend than if you're going in and worried about just one. And I think we have a bunch of weapons. The key is defensively and rebounding wise, are we going to be the best we've been all season? If the answer is yes, then we're going to be in great shape because we have enough weapons offensively.
On Langston, I know you'll have to wait until where it is on Friday early afternoon, but with him, based on what you've seen so far, would you say it's trending in the right direction?
He's done a lot of good things in practice, and at the end of the day, he's 6'4", and he's got a grown man body, and he's physical, and he's a really good player. So that's a good thing. Not doing anything for as long as he was out. It's going to take a little time to get the rust off, get the confidence going, and we'll see how he keeps progressing. But I know he's definitely somebody that wants to play, and if he can and he can help us, he's going to have that opportunity.
Scott, how do you feel the week is with the team when they're looking to this, especially the guys the first time in the tournament? What do you like to see that, like the wide eyes, the excitement? What's that like for a coach?
I think there's certain times of the year, like when you go to a wedding, everybody's in a good mood, right? You go to a graduation party, everyone's in a good mood. You get to March Madness, everybody's in a good mood. Everyone's excited. Everyone's rejuvenated. There's added life. And when you're in the city by yourself, you band together even that much more. We really have a bunch of great guys, and when we're together, that helps us. Some teams that don't get along when they're together longer, it hurts them, you know? So we're blessed that we have guys that like one another and want to be with each other. And the more we're with each other, the more we want to keep things going.
Scott, we had John Jacobs on. It's been a couple of weeks ago, but he was telling us about a story. We were talking about, we've seen you, like the game, the game against Oklahoma when Perry Jones was declared ineligible. We know that focus, that look you had, and I hate even bringing it up, but you have been animated more this year, and you've discussed that. But what is the story about some players that were on Instagram playing flag football that got you riled up maybe back in the day?
Yeah. Well, we all know that you don't want your guys playing flag football and risking injury. And when you tell them not to do it and you find out someone did it, I think as parents we all can relate. Like, hey, don't do your homework or do this or do that, and you find out 10 minutes later, a day later, they just disobeyed. You're like, well, we got to go up a level, right? So, I mean, obviously your first talk didn't work, so there's got to be more involved. So, that wasn't one of my favorite moments.
Hey, I'll tell you this. We asked King about it. He said that he's never seen.
King, yeah.
It was King. He said he's never seen somebody do so many push-ups so fast.
Yeah, because
I think King's exaggerating there. It might have been 15 push-ups. It was like 100. All
right. We know you're busy. It is go time. The experience of what you and your staff bring to the table and some of the players who are returning. Good luck in Denver. We appreciate you. We hope to see you very, very soon. And thanks for your time during a very busy, obviously, Wednesday afternoon.
We appreciate you guys, and hopefully we will see you either in Denver or in Louisville. So I love the confidence. So appreciate you. Thank you, guys.
Thank you very much. There's national championship. Men's basketball coach Scott Drew, Baylor, up in Denver. And so we now have confirmation on the King McClure. I kept thinking, I sent Alvin Brooks a text. He goes, it wasn't me. And it was King who shared that story about somebody getting caught playing flag football on Instagram. And, boy, Instagram's gotten a lot of people in trouble over the years, right?
Well, I think that's 50% of what it does.
Yes. So thanks to Scott Drew. The Langston Love, the way he discussed that, again, it's a decision to be made, maybe in a way they know, but that it seems to be, he didn't say trending up, but he did seem like that Langston's been able to get in some pretty good work this week. But an eye injury, it's a very sensitive thing. Baylor and UC Santa Barbara will tip it off right after noon on Friday. And so if things go well for Baylor, the good news for us is we could end up with an interview on the show with perhaps a player or a coach on Friday's show. All right, we're not done. We'll have today, just after 5 o'clock, Kevin Flaherty covers the Big 12, covers Kansas, 247. His thoughts on the tournament and the teams in the Big 12. I'm not able to watch or monitor the chat room. Brian Etheridge is today. Paul's working on that as well today. Garrett Ross running the mothership. Jack McKenzie is here. Craig Smoak. The Dragon's birthday today here on March the 15th.
And Katie Rader, $10 super chat. Happy birthday, Craig.
There you go. Thank you, Katie Rader.
Appreciate you.
And that as well. This is 365 Sports. PettyClinicLowT.com. Dr. Kent Petty can help you become the high-performance man that you want to be, need to be, and used to be. As you get older, 1 out of every 3 men are affected by testosterone levels inside the body dropping. And with that, that also can change up quite a bit when it comes to your energy. You just don't feel the same. You don't go to sleep and sleep as well. And then also could affect your sex drive and what is the performance in the bedroom. Nothing wrong with admitting that. Look at all the various shows and commercials these days about ED and whatever may happen to you. It happens. It's father time. And 1 out of every 3 men have symptomatic issues of low testosterone. Go to PettyClinicLowT.com and the website, number and email in the top left-hand corner. Contact them. Tell them I sent you. And they will then set you up with an appointment to get your blood work. They get the results. Dr. Petty looks at the results, and then they have a plan for you if you're one of those 1 out of 3 men with low testosterone. Dr. Kent Petty and a great staff at PettyClinicLowT.com.
With so many companies and policies out there, it gets so confusing shopping for insurance, and I never know if I'm getting the policy that's right for me. Luckily, I met the team at the Niche Group Insurance Agency. With the Niche Group, you can go to one company and get access to coverage options from many insurance carriers, and you get to speak to a real person about your specific coverage needs. With the Niche Group, I know I'm getting the right coverage at the right price. If you need insurance, talk to the experts at the Niche Group at 1-800-258-8302.
Riverbend Liquor and Wine, Lakeshore Drive and North 19th Street, right behind the bank, is a hidden gem in Waco. If you're a fan of bourbon, especially local Texas bourbons, that's where you gotta go. Balcones, TX, Devil's River, whatever it is, they've got it. Riverbend Liquor and Wine, plus the best selection of craft beers in Waco, seasonally churned out throughout the year. Whether it's spring, summer, fall, or winter, Riverbend Liquor and Wine, best selection of craft beers, a speedy drive-through window, and excellent customer service. Find out more on Instagram or just go by and see them. Lakeshore Drive and North 19th Street behind the bank.
How did Edward Jones become one of the biggest financial service companies in the world? By not acting that way. Financial strategies, one-on-one advice, it's a big difference. And that's why Brad Wilson, your Edward Jones financial advisor, makes sense of investing. Experience the difference for yourself. Brad Wilson, 250 Sharon Drive in Woodway, 254-776-4337. Edward Jones, member SIPC.
Don Humidor, your home with a 48-foot walk-in humidor with the elite cigar brands from around the world, including the #1 cigar of the year, Aging Room Cuatro Nicaragua. Plus, they have the great brands like Macanudo and Artur Fuente, Rocky Patel, Aston, and so much more. CBD, great for sore muscles, aches and pains, sleep, Vita Dreams, and anxiety, mild depression, general health and wellness. Their staff very knowledgeable on the subject. If anyone is curious about CBD, ask Carol and Ashley. Don Humidor in the Townwood Shopping Center off Valley Mills in Waco.
Shorty's Pizza Shack at 12th and Bagby is a homegrown, locally owned pizza place that's out of this world. Everything from the dough, the sauce, the sausage topping is made fresh in-house. Not to mention the amazing pizza pillows, the chicken wings are to die for. Try the Sikkim sauce, chili cheese fries, or tots, plus great specials on food and drink every single day. Shorty's is also the perfect spot to watch the game with your friends. Shorty's Pizza Shack at 12th and Bagby. Tell them Paul sent you by.
Boozers is the wedding ring store and more. If you're ready to get engaged or already married and want to upgrade your wife's ring for a special anniversary, Boozers is the place to go. With the largest selection of premier quality diamond engagement rings and wedding rings in Central Texas. They have 7 cases with over 300 styles of rings from top designers like Natalie Kay. Choose from yellow, white, or rose gold, plus beautiful top quality loose diamonds. With an in-house jewelry, they can also custom make anything you want. Bring in a picture or drawing and let Boozers create your one-of-a-kind pendant or ring. They can even use some of your old gold and diamond jewelry to create something new. At Boozers, you'll find a great selection of quality timepieces, and Boozers is the place for expert watch maintenance and repairs too. They specialize in expert Rolex watch repair for fine jewelry, watches, custom work, and more. Go to Boozers on Valley Mills and Lake Air Drive in Waco.
Boozers, the wedding ring store and more.
This is 365 Sports. Are you a Sikkim 365 super fan? Then try out our premium subscriptions at Sikkim365.com.
All right, sorry about that. Paul Catalina, Craig Smoak on the set. David Smoak, I'm on an alternate chair today. And so I kind of like this.
Well, yeah,
I know both of you do because you have room to breathe over there.
Well, I don't have
Look at Craig shaking his head quickly, yes.
I mean, I do like it's just different. So, yeah, I kind of do like it.
I don't have a big box right here next to me taking up space. And
big box?
Yeah,
oh,
this
the
big
one
wooden
that
box,
yeah. Okay. Well, I know where I stand or sit. Well, this is kind of nice. I appreciate that. Garrett Ross, Jack McKenzie in studio. So someone, and I don't wish I could give him credit, but this was sent to me about streaming. Paul, I brought this up to you before the show. The advantage about streaming is if, in fact, you have a game, let's say your favorite team with a game you want to watch is supposed to tip or kick off at a certain time, and a game prior to it is running late. It would not affect you watching that game. You could get it immediately right there. Now, they do a pretty damn good job on cable TV, linear TV, of rolling the crawl and saying, by the way, Houston against Fordham can be now seen on ESPN News.
Yes. Now, this is true, except for when you want to talk about streaming versus linear cables for the watching amount of games. If you want to watch one thing, that's what streaming's great about. If I just want to watch The Office or I just want to watch one game, then I can do that without interruption, without commercials, without anything. Tulsa King, I can just watch that. Yeah. I don't have to watch Tulsa King and then wait. You know, like even with cable that plays, if you like Friends and you watch TBS, they'll play like 6 episodes back to back to back. Well, what if you wanted to watch 10? You know, there's going to be something in the middle there that maybe you don't want to. That's what streaming does. But what it does not allow for is that as soon as the game is over, so if you're watching Baylor and TCU this year,
it's over.
And when they kick that field goal, they're like, that's it. TCU wins in the last second. Done. Broadcast is over. And you do not get, which is, Craig and I both, I think you too, have said that, like, you know, 25% of the games we wind up watching are ones that are already starting when the game we were watching is over.
Yeah.
So, like, we'll join this one. Like, TCU and Baylor is over. We're going to take you to Michigan State and Purdue right now, already in progress. And, it's 17-17. You're like, well, hell, I'm in for this one.
Yeah,
so,
it probably is a game I might not have realized I was going to watch it, and then all of a sudden, Craig, I have more interest because, hey, it looks like a pretty good game.
I mean, I think that's what it falls into, though, the whole streaming conversation. I think people, like everything else, go to extremes with it of like, oh, this is never going to work, or it's the greatest thing since sliced bread. I mean, I've seen somebody bring up, it might have been John Wilner, as a matter of fact, in like a real smart-ass response to somebody from some Big 12 fan. And I get he's on edge because of the last several weeks and what his mentions look like, and everybody who's just sort of involved in the story is kind of defensive about things. But somebody made a comment about, 18-year-olds and watching stuff on their phones. And that's true. That's probably how most 18-year-olds now do watch things. They don't watch just regular old Fox or whatever. I also, however, don't know how many 18-year-olds are watching college football religiously and wherever they are on their phone watching Baylor versus Texas Tech or USC versus UCLA. I think the thing with streaming from my standpoint is the people who want to watch the Pac-12 or the Big 12 or the Big 10 or whatever are going to be able to find it. They're not going to have a problem with that. Will there be a little bit of a pain in the ass because you're trying to get out of the ESPN Plus app to go to just regular Fox and then to bounce around to go to regular ABC and then go back to the ESPN Plus app? Like, that is going to have some lag as far as you being able to keep up with everything as immediate as you wanted to. But ultimately, the people who want to watch this product are going to find a way to watch this product. There might just be a couple of delays in the way that you would do that compared to the streaming jump you have to make with your remote, which is a couple of extra buttons really versus having the one less button that you hit on regular cable to go to your guide. So I think that maybe that's been a little bit blown out of proportion, but what I do think the streaming element does do is it does take you out of that cable world where if I am watching a Big 12 game or a Pac-12 game or whatever, I am more apt to flip up and down within that guide, within those channels, as opposed to let me go launch my Roku and let me go get into Apple TV, which always takes forever to load, and forever being, like a full minute or so, 30 seconds, whatever it may be, and then get into that and have that all set up and now get into this. And what? It goes to commercial? Am I going to sit there and wait through? No, I'm going to go back to watch Michigan, versus Michigan State or whatever on Fox. So there's just going to be a little bit more you have to jump through to go find exactly what you want, if that's, what your preference is to go watch the product on Apple or the product on Amazon or what have you. But besides that, we're pretty adaptable.
We are. Even me. It's an instant gratification world now, right? It is an impatient world, right? Yet 10, 20 seconds or so, for example, I'll give you an example for someone like me that's learned all these different options or avenues. I'll watch Yellowstone when the series has their, 7, 8, 9 episodes. As soon as it's over, on my laptop, which is right there in front of me at the office, at the condo, I go straight to Netflix, and boom, is it Netflix?
Paramount Plus.
Excuse me. And Tulsa King is sitting there waiting for me.
Yeah, I mean, you could.
I've learned how to handle that.
Yeah, you could also do that on your television pretty easily. But
well, you haven't been over there to set that up.
Again, my prices for you have gone up. Way up.
No, there's been interference in why you can't just come over there and be a friend.
Yeah, my prices have gone up. That's the interference.
Right, some NFL news we'll get to, Craig.
So today, are we celebrating that the Pac has a new TV deal, or are we all aware that this thing isn't done yet? And I'm not saying that to cause like the further conversation of like Arizona's leaving for the Big 12 or anything like that, but it seems like there's a lot of victory laps going on social media, and it's like, can we see the deal first? Because even with the quotes from the Arizona schools today, and I'm not saying see the deal as in like, oh, it's going to be too low and somebody's jumping. I'm just saying in general, like, I'd like to see this deal before, you start getting into like how great it is or what a win it is or what have you.
It's a win if they stay together.
Well, that's automatic.
It can be a specific type win based on the numbers that they're getting and the exposure that comes with it.
Right. I just feel like it's already being said as though it's a done deal, that it's Amazon, Apple, ESPN, and I think we still need to, it seems to be the way that it's going, but to be clear, for anybody who's not following this like religiously, there's not a TV deal yet. They're apparently close, and it's going to be announced at any moment based on the deal. But to be very clear, there's not one just yet. Now, again, that's not to say that that's cause to go run around and say, oh, my gosh, this is the gasoline to more realignment or anything. But just to be clear, there's not a deal. We're talking about it as though it's like done now and that they've announced it and that it's official and that it's – and not us, but just in general, it seems like that's kind of the conversation today. But no, they're still working on it, and what that ultimately ends up looking like, I'm sure will lead to further, back and forth or further bragging rights for whoever wants to claim those or whatever. But I am interested to see what that looks like in the end, and ultimately how we adjust to and how the Pac-12 schools adjust to whatever that broadcasting rights are going to look like.
It does help. It whether you can read between the lines of the quotes from Arizona and Arizona State administrators, it does help that somebody has said something. Did they confirm that they're not leaving the Pac-12? Maybe. Did they also deny that they haven't? I think that you can read into all of that. The good news for me is that there's a couple of more schools now that have spoken up, discussed what is true or not, and now there's more than what used to be zero. It was Washington State. And then all of a sudden you have Arizona State. Last week it was the Utah AD on a response to Dennis Dodd and his comments. Doesn't mean any of the stuff they're just saying, that there hasn't been at least interest in looking at other options.
Yes, and I've seen it described in more detail. I don't care about it at this point. It's just
you know what I care about. I
don't give a damn what the conversations were. I don't care. People are getting in the mud over how much they talked and to what extent and whether they I'm just saying, did they talk to some level? Yes. Some would say they didn't talk at all. There was never anything whatsoever to this. Others have now I sort of know they have talked, but not to this. I don't care. Whether they talked or not, clearly there was some discussion. Whether it was the 5th guy in line talking to the 10th guy in line at Arizona alumni-wise, and that's all it ever was. I don't that's fine. Claim your victories on how much conversation there was or whatever. But there was clearly a level of conversation, whether that be level 1 or level 100. It doesn't really matter, because all I care about, and I think all anybody really cares about, is the end result and where we eventually go. And so it just seems like a lot of time and a lot of energy has been spent on did Ray Anderson, who cares? Is Arizona State moving or not? That's to me is the story. But
it seems to me, Craig, that you're right. That there's surges of these momentum shifts or whatever when it comes to this story. And in the end, we still don't know what the answer is.
Still don't know. So my whole thing is that's why I don't care what's been confirmed or whatever. I still am curious to see this Pac-12 TV deal because, hey, they stick together, and that's great, much like the Big 12. If you're a Pac-12 person that rooted for the Big 12 to stick together, then kudos to you, respect, back and forth, all that. But what's the SMU San Diego State answer now? We just forgetting that they were being talked about 3 weeks ago. So I'm curious to see how involved those schools are, because I see a lot of SMU and San Diego State fans who are celebrating as though they got a new TV deal now. And so, obviously, if they were to move, that's another chapter of this story. And also the details of this thing. Like, it just feels like today, if you're just – and look, I probably shouldn't even delve into this because as soon as we start basing things off Twitter, we're already going backwards. I mean, really, because it's just such a madhouse. But we still don't know the deals of the TV deal. We still don't know if they're going to expand or not. And to me, those are far more interesting than whether Ray Anderson talked to Brett Yormark or vice versa or whatever. Like, those are still the key elements of the story to me, and that I'm fascinated to see, hopefully sooner rather than later, because whatever the deals or the details of that TV deal are, while we also argue over the minutia of whether it's Amazon or it's ESPN Plus and how hard it is to grab a remote and all those types of things, what's the length of the TV deal? Like, what is the payout to each of these schools? Those are the interesting things at the end of the day, not the back and behind the scenes and all of that may or may not have occurred. Although I know that's as interesting as anything. But if they sign a new TV deal, what does that grant of rights look like? Is there a grant of rights? That's way more important to the future.
Everybody signed the grant of rights.
That's way more important to the future of the Pac-12 or to the Big 12 or to whoever than whether or not how it occurred along the way, occurred the way that it did, according to whoever you want to say that it's according to. You know what I'm saying? Like, So for me,
I think it's so sensitive emotionally that people look for any quotes from whomever. And by the way, it's been that way when there maybe not be a great quote. It doesn't look good. And, oh, no, look at that. And then vice versa. It's gotten almost so overly emotional that people have lost their perspective.
Yeah, and yeah, I think so. And it's been a fun topic to talk about. But, yeah, I still think that there's far more interesting things to learn, which, again, is that TV deal. Okay, more so than, I guess, what's it on is interesting because that's also going to help propel – perhaps others to join that fray or to think differently about what they're going to do the next time their TV deal comes up. But, yeah, what does the grant of rights look like? And I don't mean this for Big 12 expansion either. I'm saying for the future of college football and the Pac-12 moving forward. How is it streamed? How is it on linear? All that's great. But what type of money are we talking here? And how long are we talking here? And are we talking there's still expansion on the table or is there not? Because I think that's notable. Because there sure have been some SMU and San Diego State fans who are already kind of preparing the plan to delve full into the Pac-12. So is that still on the table or not? Those are questions that I'm still far more curious to know than whether or not there was a discussion. I mean, and I don't say that to like.
You don't have to explain.
I know. I'm Paul, explaining to people that don't matter.
When you go to bite into a really good piece of sausage, like a Bratz, Johnsonville Italian hot, whatever. Do you give a damn how it was made? I mean, it comes from a company that's reputable.
No, I mean,
that's my point with what Craig is saying.
Yeah, exactly.
Does it taste good?
No, I don't part of I don't want to see it. Like, I don't want to see how
you probably don't. Not
because even that's like,
But my whole point of my
I don't need to see it all.
Does it taste good? Yeah. And at the end of all this, was the sausage made, how it was made, no matter the ups and downs, no matter some dark days for whoever, in the end, does it taste good? And does it taste good is the exposure, the money, the grant of rights, and the length. Period.
Yeah.
All right. When we come back, Kevin Flaherty, he covers the Big 12 in basketball, 247 Sports and the tournament, the Big 12 teams, and more. And this is 365 Sports. Alan Samuels, Dodge Chrysler Jeep Ram Fiat. I traded a text or two with Ted Teague. And by the way, we need to discuss how iPhones are working now. I got to get into that story from my old man part of me. But I was able to get some copy points, notes as well, on their new incentives. And in fact, let's see here. There we go. From Lexi. Thank you, Lexi, for sending this to me because I don't have my laptop with me today of my setup that we have. As the basketball tournament has started, as the games are heating up and the rivalries and the seedings and might be Cinderella. Alan Samuels, Dodge Chrysler Jeep Ram Fiat with Ram Truck Month right now going on in the month of March. Right now, the new 2022 Ram 1500 Lone Star Crew Cab with values up to $8,250 plus $500 to first responders, or get 1.9% financing for 72 months. Pick from the best selection of what you have when it comes to the brand new inventory every single day arriving on the lot at Allen Samuels Dodge Chrysler Jeep Ram Fiat. They have what is the Jeep Celebration event. They have the Ram Truck Days. There's always a value for you when you come and look at a vehicle and go to the lot at Allen Samuels Dodge Chrysler Jeep Ram Fiat, Loop 340 east of 84 in Waco.
Pizza, burgers, and Bears football. There's no place around Waco that serves them all other than Bubba's 33. Come show your green and gold and enjoy some of Waco's best food and beverages while watching your favorite team, the Bears. When real Bears fans get hungry, Bubba's 33 is the #1 spot for ice-cold drinks, hand-stretched, stone-baked pizzas, and bacon-infused burgers. Join us for indoor or patio dining. Bubba's 33, Waco's restaurant and proud supporter of Baylor Bears football. Sick 'em, Bears.
You want to know why Stonewood Dental is so successful? Listen to what happy customers have to say.
It's pleasant. It's different than any other dentist office. I really feel like they care. And it's not that you're here for 2 hours waiting on someone to take care of you. It's quick and easy, and I bring my kids, and my kids love being here too. They really love the treasure box. Staff is really nice and accommodating, real friendly. You feel more like home. It's not sterile looking. Everybody has their own personalized rooms with decorations and decor, and they'll even have a blanket for you when it's cold. I've recommended people to actually come here, and they are patients now. I really love it here. It feels like family.
Learn more, stonewood-dental.com.
At Ideal MRI, we feel blessed to be part of the Waco community. We're a small family business here in Central Texas. At times like this, the cost of healthcare has never been more important. And unfortunately, significant illnesses and injuries still occur. And that's why Ideal MRI is open and here to serve you through this difficult time. So if you need an MRI, ask your doctor about Ideal MRI. You can schedule online in minutes at idealmri.com or call 833-IDEAL-MRI.
Waco Custom Marketplace is your hometown grocery store with a full-service butcher shop and bakery. Hi, this is David Smoak. The butcher shop can take your customized orders for seafood, pork, and poultry and custom cut your favorite steaks from bacon wrap fillets to T-bone to bone-in ribeyes, cut specifically the way you want. They have Norwegian salmon fillets, catfish fillets, sliced ham or turkey and lunch meat, variety of cheese available, and several options of sausage links, fresh chicken breast or whole chickens, sliced bacon, pork chops, ground beef, marinated beef, and chicken fajitas, and always large briskets available, plus fresh vegetables. So the great product, customer service, and family tradition of the Bauer family continues at Waco Custom Marketplace, open Monday through Saturday. A full-service butcher shop and bakery available. Waco Custom Marketplace, 425 Lake Air Drive in Waco, or WacoCustomMarketplace.com.
Let Camille Johnson Realtors guide you seamlessly through the process of buying your dream home or selling your current one. Commercial, farm and ranch, or residential, Camille Johnson Realtors can smoothly and successfully lead you through any transaction. With a team of 28 experienced agents who are excited about serving you, Camille Johnson Realtors services the entire greater Waco area. If you're in the market to buy or sell, contact Camille Johnson Realtors, 104 Midway Center in Woodway, or find them online at www.camillejohnson.com. Camille Johnson Realtors, elegant, charming, warm. Welcome home.
This is 365 Sports, powered by Sikkim365.com. Enjoying the show? Hit the like button and subscribe.
National College Basketball writer with 247. CBS Sports covers the Big 12, has seen the 7 teams who are in the tournament. And Kevin Flaherty joins us now from 247 Sports on 365 Sports. And with Craig Smoak, Paul Catalina, I'm David Smoak. Kevin, Obviously, Texas with a great surge and had a really good year. Kansas, the bench issues, Baylor's defense, and got embarrassed on the boards by Iowa State. Who among those three has what you think is the it factor to go past the second weekend and maybe get to Houston?
I might think that it would be Texas. And the interesting thing about Texas is I'm not sure I thought that 2 weeks ago. When you look at sort of the splits of this is what Texas looked like with Chris Beard, this is what it looks like with Rodney Terry. Up until a couple weeks ago, Texas wasn't playing great defense under Rodney Terry. There was a huge gap. I think they were top 5 in the country in defense under Chris Beard. Against Rodney Terry, the offense was a little bit better, but the defense was sort of outside, I guess, what you would consider that championship level. But over the last few weeks, Texas really ramped it up on that end. You saw that in Kansas City. You see the depth. You see the way Dylan Disu is playing. I think I would probably go with Texas at that point. Kansas just has so many unknowns, and not just the bench, not just, Kevin McCullough has said that he's ready to play, but I think all of us who have been around the Big 12 for quite a while see the way that Kansas sort of revs off of Bill Self's intensity. And if Bill Self coaches but is not able to be Bill Self, I think there are some questions there as well.
Kevin, Big 12 got 7 of their 10 teams in, 70% of the field, and it has been a gauntlet of a league. Do you think that their seeding reflects what they were, or do you think they got under or overseeded in any spot?
Obviously Oklahoma State being the last team left out, you feel like that could have gone either way. Oklahoma State fans are probably going to sit there and compare the conference record with West Virginia and say, hey, we won one more Big 12 game. And in the past, 7-11 in the Big 12 at times has been enough to get in, and it was for West Virginia. Oklahoma State sitting there at 8-10 probably has to say, wait a minute. We've been hearing for months about how difficult this league is. You almost go 500 in the league. You drop some really close games that maybe kept you from being 500 in the league. But the committee has always kind of said, hey, we don't care what conference you're in. We don't give extra credit for that. What they look at is just, hey, who'd you play, where'd you play them, and what happened? And West Virginia did a little more work in non-conference season, and Oklahoma State wound up getting left out. I think that was the one part, just, sort of from an outside point of view, if you will, where I said, through a month ago or so when Seth Davis and they had the big seating reveal and everything, Seth Davis is asking the committee chairman saying, hey, could the Big 12 get all 10 teams in? And then you wind up with 7. And so I think that was the one area. Other than that, the seeding I didn't think was too bad. The teams that did get in, I felt like were fairly well rewarded.
Iowa State, the 6th seed, kicking it off against Pitt, who we saw win their playing game just last night. TJ Otzelberger and the crew have obviously had a great year. What are your thoughts on the Cyclones as we enter March?
Yeah, I'm the person here that likes watching good basketball is very excited that Pittsburgh won that game because Iowa State and Mississippi State, I mean, it would have been, you guys have seen those slap fights on TV that they have now, where one guy slaps the other guy, they take a short break, and then the other guy slaps the other guy. Mm-hmm. That's about what that would have looked like from a basketball standpoint. I do think, Pittsburgh coming from that game, it was a physical game, having the relatively quick turnaround. I like Iowa State's chances in that one. I do think the basketball is probably going to look a little bit better with Iowa State and Pittsburgh than it would have looked like with Iowa State and Mississippi State. And Iowa State's one of those teams I feel like it's very hard to prepare for. It's tough to prepare for that defense, for that intensity, for the physicality they play with. And so Iowa State has kind of a low-key, a nice little chance to maybe go on another run to the Sweet 16, I think, this year too.
If TCU, obviously all this bears on both teams getting through, but TCU and Gonzaga would be kind of destined for each other. Can TCU, without Lampkin, beat Gonzaga?
I think it would be so tough just because, I mean, you guys have probably seen Gonzaga more than anybody outside of Gonzaga the last 2 years. if you don't have an answer or a way to take Drew Timme out of the game, Gonzaga is just so tough. You really need to make Gonzaga a team where the guys around Drew Timme have to beat you, and there are times this year where they have beaten people. And at the same time, you do kind of have to take away that right-handed layup, if you will, which is what Gonzaga wants to do, which is just feed Drew Timme over and over again. I think with Lampkin being there, I think the physicality and the athleticism that TCU has, the way that they get out on the break, Gonzaga's speed is not going to shock TCU, and we saw that happen with Baylor. The times that Baylor had played Gonzaga, Baylor was one of the teams where they just flat out said, you guys can run if you want to, but we're more athletic than you, so you need to make a decision. And so I do think that TCU has a chance to maybe hang around in that game, keep it somewhat close, but I just think it's going to be so tough, given that I don't think TCU really has a way to keep Drew Timme from being Drew Timme in that game.
Kevin, are you on board with a lot of people who feel like this is Houston's tournament to lose, or they're the favorites, or do you see it differently?
I don't know whose tournament it is to lose. A lot depends obviously on injuries, and I hate to kind of cop out and not give you a specific name, but if Houston doesn't have a full strength Marcus Sasser, maybe they're a little bit better equipped to play without Marcus Sasser than some other teams are, but they're also a lot more vulnerable. And so when you look at that team and all the things that they do, they defend, they rebound, they've got really good guard play, and so they could maybe absorb that hit for a few games if for whatever reason. I know he's expected to play, but if he isn't at full speed, if there's some rust there, things like that. But I think that once you get down into it, once you get into that Sweet 16, that Elite Eight, the Final Four, Alabama's got just an incredible road to the Final Four, and that they could not play anybody basically until the Elite Eight. And so when you look at that league, or when you look at that bracket, I think Alabama's kind of got the road paved for them. We've seen, paved roads turn into pits before, but at the same time, I do think Alabama has the better road, if you will, to get to that point. And I think that if Houston's full strength, I would have no problem calling them the favorite. That's a question right now.
We had Chuck Cooperstein on, Rob Douster on. They both obviously know college basketball. That's why we have you on as well, Kevin. If, in fact, you sometimes try not to make decisions or hire based on emotions. We've seen what Rodney Terry has done since the Chris Beard story. He has done amazing. And here they are. They win the Big 12 title for the second time in 3 years. Playing at a high level, as you mentioned 2 weeks ago, you wondered. Baylor thumped them pretty good about 3 weeks ago. Should he have already been given the tag as the next basketball coach at Texas?
I don't know that he should have already been given the tag, but I do think that Texas needs to proceed very carefully here. And the reason I say that is it's so easy to look at these coaching searches, and Texas has a huge history of this. I used to cover Texas, for Scout. Texas has a huge history of saying, hey, we're going to just grab whoever we want, and it's going to be a great coaching search. And then you wind up with Charlie Strong. And I get that that's on the football side of it, but, they went into that, and if you looked at the candidates, obviously people were talking about Nick Saban being a possibility, Jimbo Fisher, the different candidates who were supposedly there. For them to wind up with Charlie Strong, I think you need to have a very realistic conversation and ask yourself, who can you get, and will they be an upgrade? And I think that's a fair question in this instance, in that there isn't necessarily, and I know he didn't work out at Texas, but there isn't necessarily a Shaka Smart, I don't think, in terms of, hey, this is the guy we've had on our radar for a few years. He's done everything that we think. It's an easy plug and play. There's not a Chris Beard where you say, this guy has been winning in our conference already. And, he's an alum and he makes for an easy plug. And if you don't get Rodney Terry, who do you get? And do you get John Calipari? And there are questions there. Are you able to pull somebody like Eric Musselman? I mean, these are people who all have a lot of reasons to say no to the University of Texas as well. And so Well, I don't necessarily think that they should have handed it over to Rodney Terry yet. I do think that Texas needs to kind of sit down, and the boosters need to sit down, and Chris Del Conte and everybody needs to sit down and say, look, what is the realistic play here? Is it Eric Musselman? Do you have Eric Musselman saying, hey, this is the job? Or is it the sort of thing where you're going to get rid of Rodney Terry because you think you're going to get somebody like that, and you wind up going for your fifth or sixth best choice, and is that person as good as Rodney Terry?
Kevin, thank you very much. Great to have you on with us. Kevin Flaherty, 247 Sports. We appreciate his time, writes and covers college basketball, but more than that, college football and recruiting as well for 247 Sports. When we come back, John Machota. Boy, what a story today with Aaron Rodgers, with Pat McAfee. Yeah. Also, the Zeke Elliott news after 7 years is no longer a member. Craig?
Yeah, I mean, I think we got a couple minutes here. Can we talk about Zeke and that move?
I didn't think they would do this. I know why they're doing it. I think it's the right thing to do. He's not as productive. We know Tony Pollard's got the big contract coming. I just never thought they would do this, but they've let DeMarco Murray walk, and they let Emmitt Smith walk.
Yeah, and look, this is very similar to more DeMarcus Ware, I think, of where you just get to a point that, well, maybe not even that. Like, it's just at the end for Zeke. And since the suspension, and, like, we have to, like, take everything from then. Because before he got suspended, the thing about Zeke was he was really immature. And I've heard 15 different stories about what happened in that car in the garage in Columbus. And none of them are good for Zeke. But none of them are the worst thing you've ever heard. But it wasn't good. So from that point, from the suspension on, that 4-game suspension that he had, 4, or is it 5, whatever it was that Jerry fought. From that point on, he's been nothing but a fantastic teammate, even in the holdout. Like, he did everything he was supposed to do during his holdout. When he went down to Cabo, he was in shape when he came back. He didn't miss a beat. He has been hardworking, great. I mean, represents the Cowboys very, very well. Everything you want from a star player since that point. And this is going to be a dent in the Cowboys' morale in the locker room. I don't know if he'll go anywhere else. Maybe he will.
Oh, yeah, he will.
Or not for that long. He's essentially a touchdown hawk at this point. I mean, where if you're in the 5-yard line in, he's valuable.
Yeah.
But he's not 25 carries a game, 30 carries like he was.
Craig, were you surprised when you saw the news?
Yeah, just the timing of it. I thought this maybe would drag out a little while longer. I didn't think they'd make a decision just this swiftly, this quickly. I mean, I understand to do it pre-draft, but I just thought, I don't know. I just the timing caught me a little off guard. Not the fact that they're doing it, though. I really kind of had settled in on the thoughts that, yeah, they could very well move on with him and price cut and, whatever, make it work for another couple years or something. I just yeah, it's weird. I just was totally caught off guard by the timing of it, so it sort of messed with my head as far as the way it unfolded. But, yeah, I'm not surprised they're moving on just because of the fact that he is getting older and the price is not what it is at now desirable levels, especially with the Pollard situation and the fact that, yeah, like now you're going to have even more fantasy booking of Bijan Robinson to Dallas. That's going to be even crazier than it might have been even before, or insert running back name here, although Bijan will definitely be the dream, for Cowboys fans, whether that's realistic or not. But, I mean, he was a great running back. I mean, he's really good, but I just can't help but, as great as the statistics were, I mean, he ran for nearly 10,000 yards, had nearly 70 touchdowns. I mean, that's nothing.
He was a touchdown machine.
That's nothing to just take for granted. But, man, what did they accomplish while he was there? I mean, because it seems like yesterday that he was there and Dak was young and they were puppies and they were going to be, the
salary cap wasn't an issue.
They were going to be leading the way to Super Bowls and glory years and all of that. And I know that's how every NFL team is when they get like their little group together, their big 3 or big 2 or whatever. You feel like that's the direction you're headed. And certainly at the time it felt that way when it was a young Zeke. But, man, he got old quick. He got old and time passed by really quickly to now.
What, about 4 years, Paul? 5, Craig? 4 or 5 years into it? He's in 7th
2016.
Year? When did the cliff hit? When did you just see the dip?
Last year.
Yeah.
Okay.
Genuinely at the end of last year.
To where you go like, this is probably not going to happen the way we envisioned it.
You know what happens? Unlike any other position, am I right that when running backs lose it, they Doesn't mean he can't come back for somebody, depending on the situation. But when running backs hit the wall, they usually they hit the wall hard.
You can kind of mask it as a quarterback. You can mask it like offensive linemen. You can maybe move them position. So if you're a really good left tackle, maybe you can move to right guard and do that. You know, you can move around and flex positions. Defensive linemen can adjust what they do. Maybe they're not as much of a pass rusher anymore, but they're still good against the run. You know, when it's a running back, though, that is a bell cow, a workhorse like Zeke, you just can't hide it.
Yeah.
You can't adjust it around enough, especially compared to a guy like Tony Pollard last year. You know, when he was in,
runs.
it just felt like the Cowboys were a completely different offense.
Yeah.
I give Zeke a lot of credit. I mean, he put his head down. He just went to work, like Paul said, over these last few years. I mean, it's like he hopefully got the wake-up call that John Morant's going to get, to where it's like, all right, I really was skating on thin ice and nearly ruining my entire career, and it's better to just stay on the up and up and be smarter about my decision-making and be a little bit more low-key, and I think that's what Zeke was. And as a result, like, you didn't hear anything negative, right, about him in any regard, really, at all for the past several years, and so I commend him for that, just keeping his head down, doing his job, and doing it well. But, yeah, I mean, time comes up quickly on running backs, and it's just, again, the timing today. I just wasn't expecting to wake up and Ezekiel Elliott's, he's no longer a Dallas Cowboy. That was just kind of jarring to me, but somebody will scoop him up absolutely, and he will be a great complimentary or whatever starting running back for someone else. I mean, guy still ran for 12 touchdowns last year. Yep. I mean, there's going to be a place for him, no doubt.
Inside the 3 to 4, 5 yard line, he is a powerful,
automatic,
still found ways to just, I mean, how many times did we see him, even in short yardage situations, have the strength to hold on to the football and stick it out beyond the imaginary line? I agree with you, though. When I saw that, I was like, wait, why today? And maybe they're going to give him a chance to now be on the open market. And I'm sure, how many teams in the NFL need a complimentary back who used to be elite?
I mean, I think we got to be careful of talking about him like he's borderline retirement now at this point.
No.
I mean, but no, I mean, he's certainly not the bell. I mean, who could use a guy who's an automatic scorer inside the 5 yard line? Any team who doesn't have that right now could possibly use that. I just don't think that he's the feature back, obviously, and that's why Dallas is moving on. But we've seen, I mean, the Super Bowl champions never have any shortage of weapons. So I don't know why anybody would be like, oh, well, he can't carry it 25 times week in and week out for us. There's no place for him. No, there will be a place for him, and I'm sure he's already heard from some people about where, opportunities may lie. But it's just weird to me that today it occurred just because I wasn't expecting it, but most of all just because that little window that Zeke was very firmly in just a few years ago is already closed now. And it's just amazing how quickly time goes by, where he was the best running back in the NFL a few years ago, and he is no longer that. And it's not even a question that he's no longer that. And it's crazy how time flies.
It's kind of like with the Cowboys when they had Marion Barber and Felix Jones, remember? And
he
Romo.
Was better.
No, he's better than both of them. No, I wasn't suggesting that. But remember when they had some of those Dez, Romo, I don't know if Paul was Barber, Felix Jones, Dez, Romo all together at any time?
Yeah, I mean, a little bit.
2007 season was the one where Dallas made that.
Dez wasn't there, but they had T.O.
Yeah.
So no offense to Dez, but better than Dez.
And that nothing, well, I mean, they had the best record in football and then lost at home in the divisional game or whatever they called it at home to the Giants, who went on to shock the world and beat the Patriots and unbeaten Tom Brady and company. All right, when we come back, somebody that will have all sorts of great insight. Does this mean that the Cowboys maybe offered Zeke a big cut and he didn't want it? What does all this mean other than the fact Zeke Elliott's career with Dallas is over? And this is 365 Sports. Just traded a text with Brian Bauer, the owner at Waco Custom Marketplace. The 30-pound bags of live crawfish, the price per pound is now $3.50. Started back 2 or 3 weeks ago at $4.50 a pound, and I told you it would fluctuate, and it's down to $3.50 a pound. Now, it's Wednesday. It is 5:30, 2 or 3. You can still order 30-pound sacks bags of live crawfish before 6 o'clock today and pick them up anytime after 4 o'clock on Friday for the weekend to enjoy a crawfish boiled deluxe. You can order before 6 o'clock every week on Wednesdays while there's still live crawfish, and we have several weeks to go, and pick it up after 4 o'clock Friday at Waco Custom Marketplace or while they're open on Saturday. $3.50 a pound for the 30-pound sacks to bags of live crawfish. Select choice and prime brisket from $3.20 a pound to $4.25 a pound. Bacon ends and pieces, $2.75 a pound. First time I ever had bacon ends and pieces, my buddy Eric cooked them. My goodness, that is delicious. And you want to have more even when all of it's gone. Raw Italian sausage, $3.25 a pound. And boudin at $2.99 a pound. I think Timothy Vermeer in Iowa always talks about wishing he had some boudin. I know I love it too. It's Waco Custom Marketplace at 425 Lake Air Drive in Waco.
In our logo and advertising, we say we are people that you can count on. What does that mean? It starts with providing a quality vehicle and quality service at a fair price. But it also means we do what we say we will do, and we treat people fairly with respect. It starts by hiring great people, good local folks who work hard with a caring attitude. Our employees are the real reason we are people that you can count on. Put us to the test and see for yourself that at Richard Carr Motors, we are people you can count on.
TFNB Your Bank for Life is the official local bank of Baylor Athletics. Find out why more Central Texas are making TFNB their bank for life. Sign up for our Edge checking and savings accounts to earn interest or cash back. With 5 convenient locations and an award-winning mobile app, banking has never been easier. TFNB, your bank for life. Member FDIC.
There are 26 letters in the alphabet, over 600,000 words in the dictionary, and just 3 of them said together can change everything. Let's order pizza. Those 3 words lead to dough made from scratch and 3 fresh signature cheeses that blanket golden crust in a heavenly melt on Marco's Pizza that'll blow your mind. So visit marcos.com to order and stop by Marco's Pizza in Belmead, China Spring, Woodway, and in Robinson. Marco's. Pizza lovers get it.
Riverbend Liquor and Wine, Lakeshore Drive and North 19th Street, right behind the bank, is a hidden gem in Waco. If you're a fan of bourbon, especially local Texas bourbons, that's where you gotta go. Balcones, TX, Devil's River, whatever it is, they've got it. Riverbend Liquor and Wine, plus the best selection of craft beers in Waco, seasonally churned out throughout the year. Whether it's spring, summer, fall, or winter, Riverbend Liquor and Wine, best selection of craft beers, a speedy drive-through window, and excellent customer service. Find out more on Instagram or just go by and see them. Lakeshore Drive at North 19th Street behind the bank.
One size fits all. That may be all right for an adjustable belt or cheap sunglasses, but when it comes to your financial needs, no one wants a one-size-fits-all strategy. Ben Erlinson, your Edward Jones financial advisor, knows that his most important goals are yours. That's why he takes the time to understand your needs, knowing you. That's how Edward Jones makes sense of investing. Ben Erlinson, 100 North 6th Street in Waco, 254-759-8533. Edward Jones, member SIPC.
In Texas, there's pea-size hail and baseball-size hail. Guess which one hit our house? We didn't even know where to begin, but we called our Texas Farm Bureau insurance agent, and he was so reassuring. He knew exactly what to do to get our house back into shape and our lives back to normal. Now, we're even more thankful for the roof over our heads.
Stop by and see our agents at one of our 3 McLennan County locations.
Coverage and discounts are subject to qualifications and policy terms and may vary by situation.
Welcome back to 365 Sports, powered by Sikkim365.com. It's time for our weekly segment with John Machota of The Athletic, brought to you by Pioneer Steel and Pipe, where customer service is their main focus, and best in metal, steel, and pipe for large or small projects, with 2 locations in Waco and Bryan. Family owned and operated since 1943.
Here we go, coming back here in this 5 o'clock hour. John Machota, theathletic.com, joins us on Wednesdays, and what a great day to have. John, the timing, the story involving Zeke Elliott, among some other things as well. Stephon Gilmore in that trade. John, with Paul Catalina, David Smoak, and Craig Smoak. John, thanks for your time. Craig brought this up just a minute ago. He, all of a sudden, Cowboys are releasing Zeke Elliott. He was like, Man, I didn't expect that today. Why today?
I think today just because it's the start of, the new league year when all these deals can start becoming official. I know that they obviously signed players yesterday and there were talks the day before, but this is when stuff became official. And, I mean, they're not going to get the benefit of the savings on Zeke's contract until, in June, which that will give them around $11 million in savings, which that fits in perfectly for the draft class. And so what is interesting, though, is that they continue to restructure contracts. DeMarcus Lawrence and Michael Gallup the other day, and they, before that did Zach Martin and Dak Prescott. And so they're obviously creating some space to be able to do some more signings. I don't know if they'll necessarily be as significant as trading for Stephon Gilmore, but I'll tell you what, watching that team last year, especially when they lost Jordan Lewis and Anthony Brown, a glaring hole was at that other starting outside corner spot. And obviously they saw that too, and they made that move for Gilmer. And so if you look at that team last year and where they're at right now, the next glaring hole is that wide receiver, getting a number 2, number 3 type wide receiver. And so that seems like that has to be the next move, whether that's today, whether that's next week, whether that's draft day. But that's the major hole that's there, because everything else that they've done over these last couple of days, I mean, I just think are really smart, solid moves to build this team so that they do have another chance to make a run in the playoffs next season.
Well, they brought back Leighton Vander Esch. They brought back Donovan Wilson, so it keeps the defense mostly intact. And then that Stephon Gilmore, maybe one of the most practical and well-measured trades the Cowboys have ever made.
Yeah, and it's one of those where you're just kind of like, I wonder how it all came together in terms of, were the Colts calling them? Were they calling around the league? Darius Slay gets released today. Obviously, he's a quality corner that was a big part of that defense in Philadelphia. And so they get a guy like Gilmore who, he's going to be 33 in September, but I just think that there's tread left on that tire for another season. I mean, you don't need him for another 2-3 seasons. You need him just for this upcoming season. And I still think that there's enough there. And to just give away a 5th-round pick and a 5th-round compensatory pick on that, I mean, that's basically, that's a deal that I just think anybody would do. Even if you were pretty solid at corner, why not add a guy like Stephon Gilmore for a 5th-round pick that, that's a player that might not even really contribute to your team at all. So that was a great move. And to be honest, selfishly for our businesses, it's a great move because it's something that provides somewhat of a spark, whether we're talking about today, whether we're talking about going into training camp, just run it back with that same exact team. I mean, that to me would just be foolish.
John, just going back to Zeke for one moment, does it feel like a bit of an end of an era, or is it at all a move that made you just stop for a second and go like, wow, time flies? Because, man, it just seems like yesterday that Dak and Zeke and, they were going to be the leaders of this team and taking them to the distance, and he was the best running back in the NFL, and it's like, boom, overnight. And I know not quite overnight, but, man, that just seemed to go by in the blink of an eye.
Well, it did. Yeah, I agree with all of that, especially because we're just out at the Combine, a couple of weeks ago, and Jerry and Steven are talking about how they think they can still find a way to keep Zeke and Pollard both on the roster. So that, to me, is telling me that they've already kind of talked to Zeke, and they think they can get him for a much cheaper number to just clean move in another direction. Yeah, it does kind of all hit you at once that that group of, especially really Dak and Zeke, just because they're friends. They both, I go back to that game in 2016, that preseason game that Romo gets hurt against Seattle. I mean, that was just such a big game because of the fact of that was such a turn in the way that this team has been built. I mean, the fact that Dak took over at quarterback then and has never looked back, and just the way Zeke played in that game, his physical style, the way he was just going right after Cam Chancellor and just really setting the tone there, you just could sense that there was something different. It was. I mean, they had quickly turned the page from the 2014 team that, you thought when that kind of fell apart, whether it was Romo and DeMarco Murray and guys like that, like they just kept rolling into this totally new, young, energetic, kind of surprised the entire league. And the one thing I will say, though, is that over these last couple of years, you've just seen a steady decline in Zeke to where you just tell he wasn't that same back anymore. And so you knew this day was closer than maybe some people thought.
John, Paul brought this up. He had the great rookie year, and then his 18 season was fantastic. He was suspended in 17, and he was on the edge of just being immature and not, maybe blowing his career, no matter what anyone wants to think about the story up in Ohio. He became, and Paul mentioned this, one hell of a teammate. Did he not, once he kind of cleared through that madness?
Yeah, he absolutely did. And I thought that was the biggest reason why Jerry and Steven so wanted to keep him around, is because of not only his physical running style and what he could do in short yard situations, and obviously his ability to protect Dak in passing situations as a blocker was elite, but also the fact of just his leadership and how guys followed him, and not just on the field, but off the field and in the locker room. And so, there's no question about that. I mean, we saw a major change in just how he dealt with us after the contract was signed, but the contract is such a big part of how I'll remember Zeke's time with the Cowboys, because really what he did, if you take the contract out of it, was very elite. I mean, that's what you would want out of a 4th overall pick at running back. You would love for 2-time rushing champ, 3-time Pro Bowler, face of your franchise for 7 years. Yeah, you love that. The problem is they gave him 6 years, $90 million, and that will be looked back on as one of the worst Cowboys contracts in franchise history. And so it's hard to separate the two, because if he doesn't have that big of a number, I think people can look past some of that stuff. But it's just so hard to look back on that, and you just really kind of hope that the Cowboys learn from that to not make that type of commitment at that position, again.
So do you think that doesn't necessarily bode well for Tony Pollard getting a bunch of money, and that they might write out this franchise tag for a little while, do what they did with Dalton Schultz?
Yeah, there's no way that they can give him a huge deal like that. I mean, if he wants to come on something team friendly for another 2-3 years, okay, fine. But to invest such a big chunk of your salary cap like that, frankly, I just don't even think they can do it anymore, just because as great as Tony Pollard is, he's not higher on the pecking order for them than a CeeDee Lamb or a Micah Parsons, and they won't do anything that will jeopardize them being able to re-sign them. And then the fact that it's not like Dak Prescott is taking less money anytime soon. His next contract's going to be more than what he's making now. And so while the salary cap goes up, it doesn't go up enough for you to be able to pay those key pieces on defense, pay CD, pay Dak, pay some of your offensive linemen, and then have the money to spend on running back. It just, I don't see them making another significant investment at that position for a long time.
You said what Steven and Jerry and what was said at the Combine, and that they would like to bring him back. Was there a possibility the Cowboys asked Zeke, hey, we will bring you back, but we want to do it for this number, and he said no?
It's possible. I don't think that's the case. I think that what they were willing to bring him back for was probably so low that they were like, hey, go out there and get what you can in free agency. We're going to just cut ties here. We need the salary cap space more than anything, and we're going to go into another season just like last season where it's clear that Tony Pollard's the lead guy. And so, I'm sure that because Jerry's obviously very fond of Zeke, I'm sure he said it in a way of, you probably have a better opportunity somewhere else, and that, something like that. I know Zeke wanted to stay with the Cowboys. I know he likes it here. But there's just been a lot of these over the years with guys that Jerry's really liked, whether it's, Ware or, Des Bryant, where it just gets to a point where you got to make a tough decision, and that's what they ended up doing today. And as tough as it is for them to make that decision, I just keep going back. So I just think it was the right one.
So, John, you mentioned wide receiver a second ago. Do you think that will be a veteran? I mean, I don't like DeAndre Hopkins has a gigantic contract. That doesn't make sense. Stephon Diggs is not going to happen. So who would you think that could be?
I would really like Jerry Jeudy. If they could give up their second-round pick for Jerry Jeudy, I would do that. Now, Jeff Howe, our NFL writer at The Athletic, he reported earlier today that the Broncos are willing to trade and listen to trades for their wide receivers. But in regards to Jeudy, they want at least the first-round pick. And I'm not giving up a first-round pick for him. But if a Denver team that doesn't have, it's going to need to make some moves and needs picks, if they're willing to take the second-rounder, I'd give that up for Jerry Jeudy. Now, he's in the same draft class as CeeDee Lamb, and if he plays really well, you're setting up to have to try and pay both of those guys potentially, which I don't think would happen. But frankly, I don't care about that. I care about this upcoming season. I care about the fact that now Aaron Rodgers is leaving the division or leaving the conference, and it's just as wide open as it's ever been. I'm trying to capitalize on right now, and so I'm willing to give up a second-round pick for a proven receiver that can help me right now, and I think they would too. But it's just you obviously got to be the right price, obviously, a fifth-round pick for Stephon Gilmore, I don't think that that's a tough decision to make at all. I think that was probably pretty easy for them. So maybe a receiver comes around that they get an offer like that. Maybe it's not right now. Maybe it's, when the draft comes around. I don't see them going into the draft with just a James Washington type wide receiver that they signed for like $1 million. I just don't see that. I feel like they know that they have to do more than that to fill that number 2/3 receiver spot.
John, speaking of all that, you mentioned Rodgers is going to be in New York to play for the Jets after the stuff with Pat McAfee today, and that's been trending. Matthew Stafford is somewhat, I don't want to say damaged goods, but obviously he's got some injury rehab and issues with his arm. Jalen Hurts was phenomenal, and if he stays that way, then Philadelphia has them who they need for the next 7 to 10 years based on his ability to run and stay safe. Who is the most elite quarterback in the NFC?
Yeah, right now, man, it would be hard to go against Jalen Hurts, which is coming off the season he had. Now, they're going to lose some pieces, and they've already lost some pieces on their defense. So I think he's going to probably come down a little bit more back to earth. But, I mean, Dak Prescott is in that conversation. I mean, you look at the rest of the NFC quarterbacks outside of Stafford and Hurts. I mean, who's competing with Dak? Derek Carr, Kirk Cousins, Kyler Murray's coming off of a significant knee injury. Geno Smith, Brock Purdy, Baker Mayfield. I mean, it's not Justin Fields.
Mm-hmm.
It's just not a really great group. And so, yeah, Dak Prescott didn't play great against San Francisco. He played one of, if not the worst games of his career. But if you can put another pretty good wide receiver into that mix with him, Gallup, CeeDee Lamb, I think Dak Prescott will look a lot better and look like possibly the best quarterback in the NFC. So you have a guy that's in the conversation, whether you think he's there or not. He's certainly in the conversation of being that. And if he is, man, that gives you a great chance to make a deep run in the NFC. And then, I mean, hey, the AFC is loaded, but you only got to beat one AFC to get that trophy in the end.
John, thank you very much, man. What a good day. I hate it for Zeke because of all the emotions involved there, but a day to have you on with Stephon Gilmore and then also the Zeke Elliott news. Thank you for your time, John Machota, theathletic.com, on those stories. Gilmore yesterday and Zeke's story coming down today, the start of NFL free agency. And, what a day. And the Aaron Rodgers story, of course, appears to be about to end. Now, what will the Packers get? What will the Jets give up? When we come back, it's Paul Catalina's Top 5. This is 365 Sports. Waco Regional Tennis and Fitness on Lakeshore Drive in Waco. It is a place where you can call your home. It is a place that when you walk through the front door and the possibility that you change how you are as far as your health and your fitness. You hear about people go work out to lose weight. Well, you can gain weight with muscle if you do it right. And then again, you can get more fit and still not lose weight. It helps, though. If you have a bad diet and you go, man, I need to go work out to make sure that I lose some weight. Exercise does not outdo a bad diet. That's the bottom line. So when you walk in the door at Waco Regional Tennis and Fitness, and they have renovated so much, new carpet, painting, mirrors, new equipment, it's pretty amazing. Plus, I haven't even brought up the tennis academy and what they have back there, which is phenomenal with the tennis courts and pickleball tournaments. But what you do is you walk in the door and you have so many options. You have Cybex machines, you have free weights, you have treadmills, you have ellipticals, you have recumbent bikes. It is fun, and that doesn't include even the numerous classes that you can also take to help you get fit. Waco Regional Tennis and Fitness on Lakeshore Drive in Waco.
I hate my job, but I don't mind getting up in the morning. I dread each day, but I can't wait to get out of bed. You ask me why, and what I'll say to you is true. Well, you can get breakfast tacos at Rudy's Barbecue. Scrambled eggs and brisket, they ain't fooling around. Salsa drap, son, they're the best in town. Barbecue for breakfast, yes, it's true. Put a smile on your morning at Rudy's Barbecue. Next in line.
Three Nations Brewing Company has 16 different beers on draft with a new beer every Friday. It also offers 2 air-conditioned tap rooms, a large indoor beer hall, a second-floor mezzanine offering a great overview of the brewing company and equipment and patio where you can relax under the shade. Plus, you can now experience the new Three Nations Beer Garden Grill on our shaded patio. Grab a cold beer and enjoy a bite from our freshly prepared and delicious menu. Street tacos, quesadillas, freshly cooked burgers and dogs, and veggie burgers too. Nachos and so much more, all prepared and cooked on site. So come visit the award-winning Three Nations Brewing Company on East Vandergrift off I-35 in Carrollton.
TFNB Your Bank for Life is the official local bank of Baylor Athletics. Find out why more Central Texas are making TFNB their bank for life. Sign up for our Edge checking and savings accounts to earn interest or cash back. With 5 convenient locations and an award-winning mobile app, banking has never been easier. TFNB, your bank for life. Member FDIC.
Shorty's Pizza Shack at 12th and Bagby is a homegrown, locally owned pizza place that's out of this world. Everything from the dough, the sauce, the sausage topping is made fresh in-house. Not to mention the amazing pizza pillows, the chicken wings are to die for. Try the Sikkim sauce, chili cheese fries or tots, plus great specials on food and drink every single day. Shorty's is also the perfect spot to watch the game with your friends. Shorty's Pizza Shack at 12th and Bagby. Tell them Paul sent you by.
Boozers is the wedding ring store and more. If you're ready to get engaged or already married and want to upgrade your wife's ring for a special anniversary, Boozers is the place to go. With the largest selection of premier quality diamond engagement rings and wedding rings in Central Texas. They have 7 cases with over 300 styles of rings from top designers like Natalie Kay. Choose from yellow, white, or rose gold, plus beautiful top quality loose diamonds. With an in-house jewelry, they can also custom make anything you want. Bring in a picture or drawing and let Boozers create your one-of-a-kind pendant or ring. They can even use some of your old gold and diamond jewelry to create something new. At Boozers, you'll find a great selection of quality timepieces, and Boozers is the place for expert watch maintenance and repairs too. They specialize in expert Rolex watch repair for fine jewelry, watches, custom work, and more. Go to Boozers on Valley Mills and Lake Air Drive in Waco.
Boozers, the wedding ring store and more.
This is Paul Catalina's Top 5 at 5:45. Or is it 5:55? Either way, it's the Top 5.
Top 5 non-Tony Pollard Zeke replacements. Just based on what I just asked John Machone, in case you didn't say, Tony Pollard, they're going to have him for at least a year, but they probably need to look longer term on that. This is a good draft for running backs. This is not all totally draft related, because number 5, a random vet. Someone like Jamal Williams might be out there. I think Travis Homer and Rashad Penny already been signed. So, Jamal Williams had 17 touchdowns last year. Makes a little bit of sense if they can get another guy on a 1-year deal. If they don't really like the running backs in the draft or don't like where they could be, but I don't think that's very likely for them unless there's an injury.
What a fantasy guy he was.
Oh, he was great.
Yeah.
Nobody drafted him, or unless they did, it was a handcuff for DeAndre Swift. So, but random vet is one option. So let's move on to the ones that are juicy. Zach Charbonnet. Different kind of
makes me want to drink a glass of wine.
Different kind of running back than Zeke. Got some power, can catch the ball in the open field a little bit. We'll have to see if he can do that, at the pro level. But I do think that this is, someone who's probably mid-second, early third round at his peak, that they would not have to spend a high pick on, that they could get, and is different enough to change it up, because that's what they did have with Pollard and with Zeke, was the change of skill set when it went from one to the other.
He's a good running back. He'd be good in Dallas. Yep.
Yeah.
He's
Where's
great at
he
UCLA.
supposed to go? Yeah. Do you know when he's supposed to be drafted?
No, I don't.
I don't either.
I mean, I've seen people rank him as high as maybe their 60th overall player. So
Okay. All
that
right.
stands like end of the second, third round.
Yeah, probably ends up third or fourth then. Okay.
Yeah, I just don't, for this list, I think it's better if you just rattle them off, because I don't really no, he would suck in Dallas. I think, it's whatever. It's open for business as far as, adding some complementary talents to to Tony Pollard. That's going to take some getting used to not saying Zeke anymore. But, yeah, I mean, it's up for grabs now, so your idea is definitely better than mine on this.
Yeah. Number 3, Devin Achane. I know he's smaller, and he's maybe more of a Tony Pollard type. I just think this dude's going to be a playmaker in the NFL, especially if he gets in the right system.
Well, is he going to end up being in the NFL also a kick returner?
Yeah. And since Tony Pollard's probably
one?
not – yeah, I mean –
He was a Pro Bowler.
I mean, as a punt returner.
Yeah.
I mean, but I mean, I don't know. Like, I like he wasn't much help to them on offense. I'll say that about Kevontae Turpin.
No, in fact, was he not much help, or they just never found a way to use him? Both, maybe his
either
fault.
way.
Yeah.
I mean, but this guy is a true. You know,
he's a playmaker.
I think Kevontae Turpin's ceiling is Vi Sekahema.
Okay.
You know, I don't think that it's Devin Achane could be.
Darren Sproles?
Or like Alvin Kamara.
Okay.
You know, like that's his ceiling. I mean, floor, you know, probably also Vi Sekahema. Number 2, Jahmyr Gibbs. I'm more and more warming up to the idea of Jahmyr Gibbs. You know, I at first was like, but he can do a lot of things. You watch Alabama last year, he can do a whole lot of things. And I think that, you know, Mike McCarthy's offense is going to clearly center more around the run game. So you're going to see more, different variations of packages. He can also do a lot of things that Tony Pollard can do. So if Tony Pollard doesn't come back from that injury really well, you can maybe just transition to Jahmyr Gibbs in 2024, maybe a little bit easier than you would, because he might fit that role a little bit.
Yeah, he's a great player. He'd be a great ad. Where does he kind of rank? I haven't even looked at
He's the second over a running back.
Yeah, so that'd be that's possible with that first round pick. I don't know how available he'd be with that second round pick, but yeah, that'd be a great get.
Yeah, if he falls to 58, then
he falls might depend on how quickly somebody, if they snag Bijan in the first half of the first round.
Yeah. So number 1, and this is the dream scenario, is Bijan Robinson falling to them at 26. And I don't think Jerry's going to trade up for a running back unless it was like, if they're at 26 and he's still not there at 23 or 24, then maybe you go do it.
I love the kid. The fact that he played at Texas, even though, but I will not allow that to be where he's a member of the Cowboys. I like him too much for him to be a member of the Cowboys. That would hurt my heart.
This is the dream scenario. I still
Philadelphia may get him before.
They're at 10, so I don't know if they're going to take him at 10, given that they just signed Penny and they still have Gainwell and Boston Scott.
Yeah, they seem to win with and Sanders is good. They let him run, but Walk. They kind of find different type of players.
Yeah, so I don't know. But
this proves you may not need an elite guy.
But this is someone who can – this can be your running back for the next 5 years, your lead dog, for sure. To me, Bijan Robinson. So
better coming out of college than Zeke?
I think probably about the same, really. I think Bijan Robinson is suffering because of Zeke and Saquon Barkley. Because they get injured, their running backs, it's tough, but – Bijan is that kind of guy who I think can help any team, great, as good or bad as they are.
Great running back, tremendous pass receiver. In fact, they probably could have used even more. I don't know much about his pass blocking, which of course in the NFL sometimes fans look at that and they don't look at it enough.
And I do think that this is maybe too much of a dream scenario, because I don't think, especially given the Bucs at 19, because the Bucs are going to be able to draft Tom Brady's replacement at 19.
Probably.
Unless they might find him in the second round with like Hendon Hooker or Tanner McKee or somebody like that. But it's going to be Baker Mayfield and Kyle Trask next year for all intents and purposes with them. So I think Bijan Robinson, having a running back who can take some pressure off that guy, becomes priority number 1 for the Bucs.
The total number of starts between Baker Mayfield and Kyle Trask are the total number of starts that Baker Mayfield's taken.
Yes.
Or had.
Yeah, Baker Mayfield's going to be the starter there. It's not.
All right, very well done. Gibbs he's got that lean to him. He made that big play late. Wasn't it against Texas in that game down in Austin to start off, or close to the early part of the 2022 season? The Georgia Tech transfer was really good for Alabama. All right, for Garrett Ross and Jack McKenzie, all of you on the chat room, I wasn't able to attend, but Brian Etheridge was monitoring you in case somebody had to be sent to the timeout corner, and usually that's the case. Paul Catalina, happy birthday, Craig.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
March the 15th, Craig's birthday today. Also, thanks to every one of our sponsors, every single one of them as we continue to grow and closing in on our third year of signing on and starting and debuting 365 Sports. That will be April the 6th. I'm David Smoak. Have a great night. Good night.
Ideal MRI is a small family business right here in Central Texas. We're open to support you while